Sumus melius cunctis ad gloria, ad fumulus nihil et mors a Roma fallimur carissima. Sol non praesumet ave calcio in auribus meis urbem diligimus, et omnia eius edixit apud Valerius, et mulieres in oculis Zaccae annos agimus, ubi optamus esse sepulcri Roma invicta. Roma invicta. Quid sit Romae res pepico est tonus procenos imperial. Quid sit Romae in manus eorum nos pugnabimus imperial sed resistimus. Roma invicta. Roma invicta. Roma invicta. Roma invicta. Laervi horrerimus da. Laervi horrerimus da. Roma invicta. Ad gloria, ad fortitudinem, fidelitatem et victoriam a Roma. Sumus melius cunctis ad gloria, ad fumulus nihil et mors a Roma fallimur carissima. Sol non praesumet ave calcio in auribus meis urbem diligimus, et omnia eius edixit apud Valerius, et mulieres in oculis Zaccae annos agimus, ubi optamus esse sepulcri Roma invicta. Roma invicta. Quid sit Romae res pepico est tonus procenos imperial. Quid sit Romae in manus eorum nos pugnabimus imperial sed resistimus. Roma invicta. Roma invicta. Roma invicta. Roma invicta. Laervi horrerimus da. Laervi horrerimus da. multitudinem fidelitatem et victoriam a Roma sumus melius cunctis ad gloria ad fumulus nihil et mors a Roma fallimur carissima. Sol non praesumet ave calcio in auribus meis urbem diligimus et omnia eius edixit apud Valerius et mulieres in oculis
Hi, Way Legionnaires. How's it going? How's it going? Oh shit, level 2 hype train. Shit, thank you. Much appreciated, Super Sip. Damn. Thank you for the 5 gift subs. That's a nice little surprise there. It has been a hell of a week, and honestly, very stressed and tired from school and life shit and the fast I've been on. It's gonna be a little bit of a shorter one tonight, honestly. Few hours, yeah. Well, we can both chill out tonight then. It was also probably not the best idea for me to do a food themed episode when I'm still finishing up my fasts, because I originally was planning on trying to do like a crazy 8-day fast to beat one of my friends who did 7. Gonna lurk. Hey, no worries, man. Yeah, you take it easy. Yeah, I was gonna try and do 8 days because he did a 7-day fast and just be like, hi, I beat you, bud. That ain't happening. It's easy to get worn out when whenever you're stressed. I can do fast pretty well, but yeah, once you, oh, there we go, got our hype train rewards, nice. I can keep a pretty good mentality up to a certain point, but just everything going on. I thought about ending it tonight, but I still want to do 5.5 days, because I'm at 5 now, or half an hour away from it, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna just go tonight, go to sleep, and then tomorrow when I wake up, which will probably be around 6 o'clock or whenever, but yeah, it's gonna be 6 in the morning, I'm gonna break my fast with something very light, and then kind of refeed throughout the day, because I got a bunch of shit going on and got some social obligations, so sadly, I won't be able to beat my crazy record, but I'll be able to beat my record, but I won't be able to get crazy with it. So, hey, no, it's fine. My record's still beaten, so I'll take that. Exactly. Oh yeah. Hey, I got to. All right. So yeah, we're gonna just do a few episodes of Tasting History, the Roman and Greek themed ones. He has a nice little playlist. Oh, it's a Greek, Roman, and Mesopotamian. But there is quite a few Romans. In fact, I think most of these actually are Roman. So we're just going to go through a handful of them here, and then, well, if I don't make myself too hungry, then we're fine. But yeah, until I get too hungry or too tired, we will. Oh, thank you for the lore kitten. Then we'll wrap things up. But hey, I said I was going to do 5 days. I will, and then tomorrow I will finish up Rise, Son of Rome at some point during the day. So yeah, let's go for it.
Leave a barrel of dead fish out in the hot Mediterranean sun for 2 months, and you are going to have a rancid, putrid mess. But leave a barrel of dead fish and salt out in the hot Mediterranean sun for 2 months, and you're going to have one of ancient Rome's most prized and oft-used condiments, garum.
Salt is such an incredible
preservative. How to make your own garum at home in a lot less than 2 months and without offending your neighbors. So smash that like button the way Caesar smashed Pompey's army at the Battle of Pharsalus, and get ready to learn about garum. This time on Tasting History. Garum, sometimes called liquamen, is fermented fish sauce. And before you say, ew, Rome, gross, you have to realize that we still have fermented fish sauces with us today.
Yep.
Worcestershire sauce is made with fermented anchovies, and different varieties of fermented fish sauce can be found throughout cuisines.
I just
in
bought a
East
bottle
Asia.
of fish sauce to
Nam
use
Pha in
for
Thailand,
a
Nuoc
Thai
Mam
dish
in
I'm going to make over the
Vietnam,
weekend.
and Ekjot from Korea, just to name a few. And I am apologizing for my pronunciation of probably all of those sauces. And in the small fishing village of Cetara in Campania, Italy, they make something called colatura di alici, which translates to anchovy drippings, and is probably a direct descendant of garum. If you don't want to make your own garum, you can go ahead and use this as a good substitute. I will put a link in the description where you can find some. But since tasting history is all about trying to recreate the dishes of the past rather than just buy their modern cousins, I decided to make my own garum. Now, when I ventured down this fool's path, I assumed it would take me a couple months because the traditional way of making garum, like the ancient Romans did, would be to take a large vessel, put a layer of whole fish, then a layer of herbs, and then a thick layer of salt about 2 fingers thick, and then just layer that up all the way until you fill the entire vessel. Put a stopper in it and set it out in the sun for 2 months, every once in a while kind of plunging it and mixing up all of the juices. And I was going to do this for you, the viewer, who I care for so much. But then a friend of mine who had ventured to Laos told me about a run-in he had with the factories that make their fermented fish sauce.
God, I can only
And
imagine.
he basically said, you cannot do that living in a condo surrounded by neighbors. They would probably call the cops thinking that there was a dead body over here. So I was
Probably.
disheartened, but I kept up my research into Roman cuisine anyway. And I'm so glad that I did. Because I found out that making garum is covered extensively in a work called the Geoponica, which dates from the 10th century and is from Byzantium, which is the Eastern Roman Empire, and it's said that it's based on a 6th century Latin treatise. Now, it actually mentions 5 different recipes for garum, and some of them have wine, some of them have different fish, different ways of preparing the garum, but I'm going to read you 2 just to spare you from reading all 5. The best garum, called hymation, is made as follows. Take the entrails of tunny fish and its gills, juice and blood, and sufficient salt sprinkled on. Leave it in a vessel for 2 months at most. Then pierce the vessel and the garum, called hymation, will flow out. Kind of reminds me of that little spigot on the bottom of our cold brew jar. And I'm guessing that just like the cold brew, a tall ice glass of garum in the morning will really get you going. But it's this next recipe that rekindled my hope of making my own garum at home, because clearly the author of the Geoponica knew that sometimes you just can't wait for your fish juice fix. If you wish to use the garum at once, i.e. not expose it to the sun, but boil it, make it in the following manner. Take brine and test its strength by throwing an egg into it to see if it floats. If it sinks, it does not contain enough salt. Put the fish into the brine in a new earthenware pot, add oregano, put it on the fire until it boils, i.e. until it begins to reduce. Some people also add defrutum. Let it cool and strain it 2 or 3 times until the liquid is clear. Seal and store it away. Now, defrutum is a syrup that's made from reducing must, which is freshly crushed grape juice with the stems, seeds, and skins in there. And I don't have any of that right now, so I decided not to use it, and that's okay because he does say some people use defrutum, and I ain't some people. So with the Geoponica giving us full permission to make quick garum, let's do it. First, you'll need about 2 quarts of water. Then, a ton of sea salt. Probably close to a pound. It's going to depend on different things like the salt, the water, and the temperature of it, but he gives us instructions on how to tell when it's ready, so we will do that with the egg later on. Then some dried oregano. I went with 2 heaping teaspoons. Then, if you want, you can add some defrutum if you have it, or have must that you can reduce. I'm not going to, 1, because I don't have it, and 2, because I want the star of the dish, the fish, to really shine through. But you can also use honey. There are records of honey being used, or other kind of sweet things, so go ahead and use it if you want. Then you'll need about 2 pounds of small whole fish. You can use mackerel or sardines or anchovies or herring, anything that is an oily fish. Now, they also use tuna, as in that first recipe, the tunny fish, but I mean, how much are you making? A tuna is like this big, so stick with mackerel at most, because even a mackerel is kind of big. Lastly, you'll need that egg that I mentioned, but that's more of a tool rather than an ingredient. So first, we make our brine. Go ahead and start adding salt to the water. I'd start with about 400 grams at first and then work your way up. I ended up using just over 400 grams. I ended up switching pots because the large pot is actually better for making this, but the small pot was better for testing it with the egg because the large pot, the egg wasn't even covered, so it couldn't tell. But mix it in, and every once in a while, put the egg in there, and once it floats, stop adding salt. Now, if you end up adding too much salt, that's okay. It's just gonna fall to the bottom, not a huge deal. Then the recipe says to add the fish to the brine in a fresh earthenware pot. I don't have that, so I ended up using a stock pot. So add the whole fish to the water and the oregano and stir everything together. Then it's time to boil it. So put the pot over high heat and let the fire do its work. You're gonna boil it for between 30 and 40 minutes, and every 10 minutes, go ahead and kind of give that fish a mashing with your spoon just to break it up. Should break up after the first 10. So as your house fills with the scent of boiling fish, my cat loved it, by the way, I'm going to show you why garum was such a popular condiment in ancient Rome. Noble garum, lordly garum, the taste of the sea. There was no end to the accolades that ancient writers put on garum. Pliny the Elder called it choice liquor, and his favorite was garum sociorum, often translated as garum of comrades. It was made of mackerel and came from southern Spain, and he said that scarcely any other liquid except perfume has become more highly valued. And while not all garum enjoyed such a price tag, it did become quite the booming business in the Roman Empire. It's thought that garum started in Greece with a sauce called gyros, probably made from a fish called gyros, which is the Netflix remake of a fish called Wanda. But when Rome took over Greece, the gyros took over Rome and became garum. See, the Romans didn't really salt their food, so instead, in pretty much every recipe that we have from antiquity, they use garum to impart sodium to their
How's it
dishes.
going?
And in doing so, it also gave a certain umami flavor, which the Romans must have loved. Because in the most famous collection of Roman recipes that we have, De Re Coquinaria, nearly every recipe uses it, though by then it was called liquamen, but that is the story for another day. Not surprisingly, it was used in fish dishes and meat dishes and in most of the sauces, but it also found its way in.
Yes, indeed, we are. We are doing the Romantism. This is just to give you a little spiel here. This is technically the last night of my Roman week, the 100 follower celebration. Although I will be doing another little secret stream sometime tomorrow. But this is the final official night, and I wanted to end things off with some ancient Roman recipes. So we are watching Tasting History of Max Miller, and I'm not really used to doing React slop. It's not really my thing, so I tend to be a little bit more quiet than I should. I'm trying to be transformative about it. I'll maybe pause the video here and there and add a little historytism here and there. But yeah, just have a little chill night just because I'm very tired. It's been a long week, stressed with classes and the fast, which I'm thankfully ending tomorrow. I can get myself refed. Probably wasn't the best idea to end my fast off with watching a bunch of cooking videos, but it is what it is. But yeah, just a nice chill night, doing this for a bit and then try and go to bed a little bit early. But how are things with you? Well, and also I hope you enjoy the experience. He is a very good YouTuber, very good at presenting his material. But yeah, how are things with you?
Into vegetable dishes and fruit dishes and used as a salad dressing, and even in some of the dulcia recipes or sweets, because fish sauce in dessert.
Wow.
What could go wrong?
I think you have to have a very particular palate for it. Yeah. I thought you were lurking there. What's going on, Super Snip? I don't know if it counts as edging. It counts as painful because I like just anything related to food. I look at food of any sort right now and I'm very just like, I could just eat that. I'm not in the mood for anything. I'm in the mood for all food right now. Doing good, sore from the gym. Hey, I don't blame you on that. It is a very gratifying feeling to do a really good workout, like something that just absolutely kicks your ass. and then you just like you get to just relax afterwards, especially if it's like weights, because then you get to eat a shit ton of food. Here you go about food again. Yeah, that's fair. It's. I mean, it's a fair question. But yeah, it's just sort of like, technically speaking, I'm like kind of not hungry, but the stress like makes you. It raises your cortisol levels, which kind of acts like sugar in a weird way with the body, the way the body processes it. So it kind of like makes you hungry, even though like your hunger hormones are actually really low. Because like whenever you fast for more than a few days, you consume all your glycogen, which is like carbohydrates, sugars, carbohydrates, that kind of thing. Your body stores that up, you eat it all, and then you're not hungry anymore. But if you get stressed, then you will start to get hungry again. So that's the issue I've had.
Because it was quite the cure-all. If
I
Galen
God,
had
I want a
anything to
pizza
say
right
about
now
it.
so
Now
fucking
you might
bad.
remember Galen from the episode on the Black Plague cures, which I'll put down in the description below. Galen thought that foods controlled the humors in your body, which controlled your health. Every food had some degree of hotness, dryness, coldness, or wetness.
I do
and
love
Garum
like
was no
old
exception.
conceptions
He
of
says that
like
garum has the
food and
considerable
medicine.
capacity for heat and dryness. And on account of this, some doctors treat putrefying ulcers with it and inject it in.
Like we kind of treat like old time thinking when it comes to those sort of things as being like, oh, it's so quaint and antiquated, but it's like it's incredible what they figured out with what they had. And like, you know, when you think about modern medicine and modern nutrition, people like 500 years from now are going to be absolutely laughing at how ridiculous our notions were. So it's like I always have a lot of respect for people of the past and what they figured out. I mean, they didn't have calculators or smartphones or MRIs. It's I don't know. I always just think it's
to
cool.
people with dysentery and sciatica. Now, if you take anything away from this video, it should be that despite what
Oh,
Galen
the
says, you
Ko-Fi?
should never,
The Ko-Fi?
ever inject anyone with fermented fish sauce.
Wait, what?
Ever. Now, if you take anything away from
God, let's see here. I'll just pull up my Ko-Fi here because I don't. The bot kind of shows up when it feels like it. Let's see here. Okay. What are we? What? No, it's not invalid. What the hell are you talking about? Uh, I think my Ko-Fi. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, hey, I appreciate. Yeah, I appreciate the donation there. Let me see. It's telling me my password's wrong, and I know it's not, but I also don't feel like looking it up. Oh, nope, I got it right here. Yeah, this won't take me long. At least I thought. What the hell? Yeah, it's been ages since I logged in there. Oh, there we go. Sweet. Okay, cool. Looks good here. That is found it. Found it. Okay. Yeah, well, there's the card that should have it on there. But anyway, here is the link. So yeah, thank you, much appreciated. Well, yeah. Super Skip likes throwing money at me. I don't know what to tell you. He likes Roman stuff, and apparently he likes me enough to give me money, and I appreciate that. I mean, I also appreciate you coming in and hanging out. But yeah, it's great. I'm gonna hopefully when I get a decent amount of money here, I want to do some upgrades to my setup. Get my own like get a proper be right back screen and outro and do some like wallpapers and shit for chat, just like some freebies. Although what I might also do is for like subs, I might have like a separate like Discord channel where I have like special release stuff and just do like an honor system thing of like, hey, here's some like wallpapers or emotes or whatever. Just you know, just don't share them with people. It's just for you guys, that kind of thing. Icon cursors, whatever fun shit I can think of, because Don't get me wrong, I'll spend some of this money on myself, but I want to try and reinvest back into the streaming stuff too. You can get those freezies, like just like frozen like pops or something. Doing the screen be right. Oh shit! Thank you, man. Much appreciated. I mean the screen stuff. Be right back and stuff. Okay. I don't know. I don't know, Hina. You are very much a zoomer. I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one.
And inject it into people with dysentery. Some doctors that garum had
I
dryness,
wanna see
coldness, or wetness, and garum was no exception. He says that garum has the considerable capacity for heat and dryness, and on account of this, some doctors treat putrefying ulcers with it and inject it into people with dysentery and sciatica.
That might be a little bit much.
Now, if you take anything away from this video, it should be that despite what Galen says, you should never, ever inject anyone with fermented fish sauce. Ever. Also, while in one writing Galen says that it's a treatment for diarrhea, in another he says it's a treatment for constipation. So, just kind of seems like wacky Galen's miracle tonic.
Hey,
I don't trust this Galen guy. Pliny the Elder, who I usually think of as a little bit more reputable, says that it was a good treatment for dog bites and earaches, and if you had stomach troubles, then the best cure was to eat African snails marinated in garum. Oh, but it needs to be an odd number of snails, because that's a thing. But while it was medicinal to some, others thought that the condiment exacerbated gout, caused melancholy, and destroyed your teeth. So
oh god,
I don't know
Hina with the snail mucus.
But regardless,
are you excited for snail mucus?
The fact that it was in almost every Roman dish and it was used as medicine means that it had become quite the precious commodity by the time the empire took off. Garum factories were sprouting up all around the Mediterranean. In Judea, they made a kosher version for the Jewish population, and in Pompeii, it was known as Gariflos Scombri, or the flower of garum. Now, production centers tended to be, of course, on the coast, because plenty of salt, and moving fish, probably expensive, but also because the fish had to be very fresh. The poet Martial said, "Accept this exquisite garum, a precious gift made with the first blood spilled from a living mackerel." But as the empire's greed for garum grew, coastal towns had to say, "Hold your horses, this stuff stinks." There was a Byzantine regulation from the Hexabiblos that stated that any new garum factories needed to be built 3 stades away from any village or town. It's about 3/8 of a mile.
Yeah, I imagine that would get disgusting very quickly.
So yeah, lovely as the flavor might be, there were some that had less than great things to say about it.
You sent her some money? Very nice of you.
In an Epicurean tirade, Seneca the Younger said, "What? Do you not think that the so-called sauce from the provinces, the costly extract of poisonous fish, burns up the stomach with its salted putrefaction? What? Do you not judge that the corrupted dishes which a man swallows, almost burning from the kitchen fire, are quenched in the digestive system without doing harm? How repulsive, then, and how unhealthy are their belchings, and how disgusted men are with themselves when they breathe forth the fumes of yesterday's debauch. You may be sure that their food is not being digested, but is rotting." Not exactly commercial copy for garum there. And
well, I think I think Seneca might be a little bit salty there, if you know what I mean.
And even Pliny the Elder and Martial had trouble making up their mind about how they really felt about garum. Martial once commended a young man for making romantic advances toward a woman who had already had 6 helpings of the stuff that night, and Pliny the Elder, who had called it proud sauce and exquisite liquor, also described garum as the guts of fish and other parts that would otherwise be considered refuse, so that garum is really the secretion of putrefying matter. And he's kind of right, but to be pedantic, it is not putrid, but rather fermented. With the salt there to stop putrefaction, the breakdown actually comes from enzymes in the fish's own digestive system, so that essentially it's digesting itself over the period of several months. Kind of like the Sarlacc pit. Anyway, let's get back to our own Sarlacc pit in the kitchen. So once the fish has boiled for 30 to 40 minutes, take it off the heat and let it cool.
Oh,
then
God,
pour it
that
through
is
a colander.
horrific.
Now it says to strain it 2 or 3 times. I ended up doing it like 7 times, making a huge mess while doing it because I started with
Yeah, you gotta be-
cheesecloth. I wouldn't do
Oh,
that.
big mistake.
It's just
Yeah.
not enough. The
Yeah, yeah. Trying to strain things with cheesecloth is a huge pain in the ass. Like you think, oh, the liquid will go through no problem. If the liquid has any viscosity to it whatsoever, it's just gonna pour right over. I have had so many instances of like filtering things through cheesecloth, and if you don't pour very slowly, you're gonna make a mess. So yeah, just if you cook and you have a recipe that calls for straining, cheesecloth is great for getting like the little tiny fine particles out. You got to be real careful with that shit.
best thing that I actually used was a paper towel and then a tea towel. So here is my bottle of garum, a nice kind of pale yellow color. Also, if you are bottling this, because it's going to last forever due to the high salt content, but you do need to make sure that the bottles have been sterilized. So, you know, boil those bottles. Now, usually this is where I would taste the food that we've made, so I would just take a swig of this. But
Yep, I was
if
there.
you've ever taken the Latin course from Duolingo,
Mostly does
as
like
we all
DBZ
have,
stuff.
one of the first things you learn is garum non bibis, or you do not drink garum. But I really want to try it in
yeah,
its pure
yeah,
form
that
before
was
I add it
quite
to another
funny.
dish. And luckily, Pliny the Elder says that if you dilute it to the color of honey wine, you can go ahead and drink it. So before I try it, I've diluted a glass here. I'm going to first tell you how it smells in its purest form. So,
Look at that reaction. Jesus
fishy.
Christ.
Smells very fishy. Okay, so I'm going to try this in the name of science. But before I do, I want to let you know that next week I'm actually going to use the garum for its intended purpose, which is as an ingredient. I'm going to be making mitulis, or mussels, as described in the Dere Coquinaria by Apicius, and that's what we'll be talking about. So make sure to hit that notification bell when you subscribe so you'll be notified when that comes out. Okay, enough stalling. Here we go. Garum. Oh, I feel like that episode of Friends where Ross is going to drink the fat. It's just a vanilla milkshake with pieces of fish in it. There aren't actually pieces of fish. It's been well strained, but okay, here we go. Enough. So, whoever said that it was the taste of the sea is right. It tastes like the ocean. It's not actually as fishy as I thought. It's more of just like salt watery.
That makes sense.
It tastes like the ocean. I think that it actually might be a very nice ingredient. That said, I'm not going to be putting it on a salad, and I'm definitely not going to be finishing this glass. So,
Coward.
yeah. Anyway, please like, subscribe, and I will see you next time on Tasting History.
Oh, well, would you look at that? There's Hotspot showing up.
In mitulis, ancient Roman mussels. Not those mussels. These mussels.
If you want to help with if you have stoppage in the sinuses, very, very spicy food. Very, very spicy food. That will clear you out. And I say that as someone who absolutely loves spicy food. I used to get sinus infections all the time because I would get really bad allergies in the spring and fall. That is a good way to clear it out immediately. Guarantee it. Yeah, fair enough. Have you ever tried snail? Oh God. Yeah. So Hina, who do you love? Well, what do you like more? Do you like Space Marines and Centurions, or do you like snails more? I'm curious.
Today we are cooking from the oldest surviving cookbook in the West, Apicius's Dere Coquinaria, or On the Subject of Cooking. Dating from the 4th century, it gives us a glimpse into what Romans were eating at the height and during the decline of the Roman Empire. So today I'll show you how to make one of its simpler recipes, and we will look at the history of this most important ancient cookbook, this time on Tasting History. Mix liquamen, chopped leek, cumin, possum, savory, and wine. Dilute the mixture with water and cook the mussels in it. Seems pretty straightforward, as long as you have all of the ingredients, and there are 2 that are probably missing from your cupboard. First, liquamen. Now, by the 4th century, liquamen had become synonymous with garum, or ancient Roman fermented fish sauce. We made a quick version of that last week, and I will put a link in the description if you want to make it yourself. Now, if you don't feel like making your own garum at home and making your house smell like fish for an entire week, then you can, of course, use colatura di alici, and I'll put a link in the description to where you can buy that online, or any of the Eastern Asian fish sauces that you can get at an Asian market. Now, those sauces are going to be slightly different than an ancient Roman garum. They use different types of fish, they use different amounts of salt and different herbs, but that's okay because, frankly, the kind that we made last week is not the traditional fermented garum either, which takes months to make, and you're probably not going to do that at home. The second ingredient you probably don't have is possum, not to be confused with this little scamp. Possum was a thick, sweet wine originally from Carthage. It's made with dried grapes or raisins and
Well, I wonder what they
grape
did after
must.
they
And someday
burned
I would
Carthage to
love
the
to make
ground.
it, but for today, I'll pass 'em. Instead, I'll use probably the closest thing that you can find today, which is Vinsanto. But you can use any kind of sweet fortified wine from Spain or Portugal or Italy. They're all going to work just fine. So with those ingredients or their alternatives in mind, here's what you'll need. 2 pounds of live mussels, 1 tablespoon of either the liquamen, garum, or fish sauce, 1/8 of a cup of possum or one of your sweet wines, 1/4 of a cup of dry white wine, or more. I ended up using probably closer to 1/2 a cup. We just need to get some liquid in there. You can do water or more wine. I chose more wine.
Yeah, I doubt there's going to be a whole lot of...
1/4 teaspoon of cumin, 1/2 teaspoon of dried
Yeah, I
savory.
doubt they're going to be doing a
I'll
whole
link to
lot
that
with
in
the
description as
land
well.
of Carthage after
And
the
then
salt
some
in there.
water.
They probably have to get some
About
alternative
3/4
sources
of a
for
cup.
wine.
And like I said, you could use more wine or more water. It's all going to depend on the size of pot you have, because you just want to have like that much.
No, yeah, that's
liquid
exactly
on
what we're
the
doing
bottom.
here. These are all well, it's a mix of, we're just going through his ancient Greek, Roman, and Mesopotamian recipes. Although most of them are Greek, but I wanted to have a little bit of variety, not just have everything be Greek. So this ended up being like a really great playlist for it. So yeah, we're just doing that tonight. Just have a little chill night. Most of these I doubt you'll be making at home, but there are some interesting ones that kind of just give you a view of what people ate back in the day. And he did make a great point that it's like, fish sauce sounds so crazy, but when you think about all the dishes that are made with it, yeah, it's kind of a really versatile dish. Yeah, tried the Sanji cookbook, but never thought of. Yeah, no, there's some great ones. I actually thought about buying his cookbook at one point because he has some really cool shit. But yeah, there's the only one. Yeah, I've only done one with a friend, and he did a suckling pig, roasted, and then we made some what was it? We had some wine, and then we also had posca, which is like a it's a mix of like a really nice quality vinegar, usually kind of like honeyed. Some it's not going to just be from the store vinegar. It's good quality vinegar mixed with water, which was a traditional ancient Roman drink, and had a few little sides with it, and that was quite good. He had to throw a lot of money down for the suckling pig. It was like, hey, if you're buying, man. And we had a little party with some friends. It was a good time. Yeah, it is very interesting. I think Max Miller does a really good job of conveying very interesting information while making it entertaining.
We'll get there. First, make sure to wash and clean your mussels. Now, when you get those mussels home, if any of them are open, give them a little squeeze. If they close on their own, great. If they don't, chuck them out. It means they're dead. Also, some of your mussels might have these little strings on them called a beard. Pull that off. You don't need it. It's where the mussel would have latched onto a rock or whatever. Then in a large pot, mix all of the ingredients, your wine and liquamen and herbs and spices, and the water. And here's where you want to make sure that there's about 1/2 inch of liquid at least, because you don't want it to completely boil away. So go ahead and add more wine or water or whatever you want. Then place the pot over medium-high heat and wait until it starts to simmer. Once it's simmering, add your mussels and put a lid over the pot for about 5 minutes. Now while your mussels steam, go ahead and pour yourself a glass of that wine, and let's take a look at how this recipe came down to us after more than 1,500 years. I often lament the fact that more recipes from antiquity haven't made it to us, but if we're only afforded one cookbook, for lack of a better term, I'm sure glad that it is the Apicius Dere Coquinaria. And that's because of the breadth of recipes that it includes. I mean, you've got your recipes for the average Josephus, like plain leeks or roasted parsley puree. But then you go all the way up to the most lavish dishes like fried spiced peacock rissoles. Now, the book, as it comes to us
I'd
today,
definitely want to try some
is
peacock
actually
at some
from
point.
two 9th century
Just for the hell of it.
manuscripts that were copied. And they were probably copied from the original 4th century manuscript when the Roman Empire was, still chugging along. The first was created in Tours, France, and now resides in the Vatican. And it's covered in highly illuminated decorative manuscript, so probably not meant to be used in the kitchen. The second version is a little bit more practical and was copied by 7 monks at a monastery in Fulda, Germany, and can now be seen at the New York Academy of Medicine. Now, there's actually kind of a third version as well. It's actually the earliest one and is a highly abbreviated version called the Apicius Excerpta a Vinidario, or a Pocket Apicius by an illustrious man named Vinidarius, who was probably an Ostrogoth living shortly after the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century. Now, one of my favorite things about the De Re Coquinaria is that it has something that is missing from most recipe manuscripts, really for like the next 1,000 years. And that is a table of contents. What a novel idea. Or rather, what a reference book idea. It's neatly divided into 10
That's a
liber,
terrible
or books,
pun, Max.
starting with Epimelis, the careful housekeeper. Or at least that's how it's translated by Barbara Fowler and Elizabeth Rosenbaum in the Roman Cookery Book. Link in the description. It's a great book. Also, I kind of love that translation because it reminds me of one of those now super outdated commercials from the 1950s. The careful housekeeper is something every good wife should have in her kitchen to keep the home running smoothly for her husband. So what kinds of things do we find in the careful housekeeper? Recipes, of course. There's one for spiced wine surprise and for Roman vermouth, perfect for that Via Clock martini. But then there are also non-recipes, things like instructions for how to keep grapes fresh, or turn salted meat sweet, or one of my favorites, to make an ounce of silphium last indefinitely. And someday I want to do an entire episode on silphium because it is now known as the lost Roman aphrodisiac. But I digress. There are also instructions, which I would really like to try someday, on how to turn red wine into white wine. It involves adding egg whites and bean meal to the wine and leaving it overnight. One,
no.
not sure if it works, so I'd like to try. Two, why would you ever want to do that? Unless maybe your villa had just had new white marble put down.
That sounds awful.
But I think my favorite instruction from the careful housekeeper is Ut mel malum bonum facias, how to make bad honey good. You will make bad honey good for selling as follows. Mix 1 part of bad honey with 2 parts of good honey. That's it.
Well, all right.
It doesn't seem quite right. Kind of.
That's what confusing. Okay, so honey never goes bad though, unless they're saying it's really cheap, bad quality. Because we found honey in clay pots from antiquity. We are talking the first Mesopotamian civilization. We were talking beginning of Egypt, and the honey is still edible. So how the fuck do you get bad honey?
Tree, but interesting. The other 9 books are marked by ingredients or style of dish. You've got the Meat Mincer, which is all about making rissoles and sausages. The Gardener, which of course is about fruits and vegetables. There's a book on fish, a book on birds, and one book called Tetrapus, which means the quadruped. I like that name. The book also includes some kind of home remedy medicinal type instructions. One for urticae, or stinging nettles, says, take the wild nettle when the sun is in the sign of Aries against
the
illness,
Arctic. How's it
if
going,
you
buddy?
wish. I don't think I trust that, because first, it doesn't specify what kind of illness this is for, and second, that little addendum, the if you wish at the end, it's like he's trying to, not get sued for malpractice. Here's a prescription. Take 8 of these each night, if you wish. And if it kills you, that's on you.
Yeah, that's not my problem
Now,
if
as
you
I said
die
before,
from it. It's fine.
Dedicoquinaria-
I set up the recipe properly. It's the right medicine. So yeah, fuck you if you die from it. Hungry, you're getting a steak. Yeah, I'm so close to being able to eat food again. I am tired and stressed. It's been a long week. School is stressing me the hell out. Without getting into particulars, I do have concerns where the class is going. The instructor doesn't understand that we're not grad students, despite us just being community college kids. He's been kind of overwhelming us to the point where I don't know. We'll see where things go. We got midterms next week. We'll see how badly we all do. I mean, yeah, it's just one of those. So I was also fasting this week, and I was originally going to do like a super long one. I was going to try and do 8 days, but then I realized, oh, I have a get together on Sunday, and we're going to be having a big meal. So I need to kind of wind down the fasting and have like a few small meals on Saturday just to get my digestive system working again. You don't want to jump in with a big meal. That is, oh, it's very unpleasant to do that. So yeah, I'm still gonna fast the rest of the night until 6 a.m. tomorrow. So that'll be a full 5.5 days. It'll be the longest fast I've done so far. I was hoping to try and do 8 just to get crazy with it and beat one of my friend's records because he's done a full 7 days. So I want to be like, I beat you. I'm the fast master now. So that's been kind of it here. So tonight was just a chill night. I'm just kind of relaxing, doing a little bit of React slop here. It was not a great idea to have it be food themed, but yeah, otherwise, yeah, it's fun. Yeah, hope it all goes well. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think I should be able to go to bed pretty early tonight, and then get up and have some food. That'll be very nice. What do runners eat before a race? I don't know. Tell me.
Has recipes that run the gamut from your simple pottage.
Yeah, I figure you're
that any
I figure you're going with
family,
that.
You know, poor middle class family could make, all the way up to the most opulent dishes that only the very, very wealthy and frankly adventurous diner would want to try. There's a recipe for a sauce specifically to be used on boiled ostrich. There are instructions on how to truss and serve flamingo, sow's udder stuffed with sea urchin, and there's even a recipe for how best to serve dormouse. Now, it may seem an odd juxtaposition going from boiled ham on one page to dormouse on the next, but that's because the recipes didn't come from...
I want the answer to be me. Yeah, it's part of your charm. It's part of your charm there, Hina.
one source. There were many sources that made up this book. See, the De Coquinaria is attributed to Apicius, but if Apicius had any recipes in this book, it was probably only those most lavish and kind of weird. Most of them came from later cookbooks and books on agriculture. So why did Apicius get all the credit? And frankly, who was this guy? In the 1st century, during the reign of Tiberius, there are several accounts of a man named Marcus Gavius Apicius. He was known for being quite the food lover to the point of ostentatious gluttony. But it seems that anyone who was anyone in ancient Rome at the time, consuls, senators, advisors to the emperor, getting an invitation to dinner at Apicius's villa was a must. Food was his thing. He wrote several cookbooks that stayed in circulation for centuries, and Pliny credits him for devising a method to make something like foie gras, but from pigs, by feeding the pigs dried figs and then slaughtering them via an overdose of honeyed wine.
Wow.
Apicius also advised...
That's amazing. Like, I mean, what a way to go for the animals, too. Like, they get fed delicious, amazing, high-quality foods, and then you get them drunk until they die. That is... I mean, hey, can you ask for a better way to slaughter an animal? It doesn't get much better than that. Let's go Zoomer charm activated. Yeah, it is. It is very charming. I had like that moment whenever we raided into Dick's stream, and yeah, you got possessive. Like, hey, you're not gonna take my ball man away from me. It was charming. It was very, very charming. Wouldn't complain about it going out that way. Yeah, exactly. It is. Hey, doesn't get much better than that. You just get so drunk that you pass out and then die in your sleep. I mean, hey, I'd take it. Yeah. He's been going on a spending spree lately. Hydrate. Yep. I'll have that. Yeah. Yeah. Because I as you can see with the model, it is shaved. Because bald is you can't grow the hair. But yeah, I understand. Sometimes they get mixed up there. Oh, there we go. Come on,
that
start again.
the
There we
best
go.
way to serve red mullet was to drown it in a bath of fish sauce made
No,
from
no,
other
no.
red
Sorry,
mullet.
sorry, Super Snip. Hina's already claimed me. Sorry, bud. Better luck next time. I mean, hey, you can throw all the money you want at me. I never said I never said. Nope, not happening. Sorry, bud. Not how that works. Well, no, no, okay, but that's also not true, Hina. I'm not your sugar baby. I'm your Roman because you don't buy me shit. You gotta buy. Otherwise, I'm not a sugar baby. I'm just your Roman. Never thought of. They are an interesting combination of words, aren't they?
Which seems a little like psychopathic to me, but I don't want to impose my modern values on historical figures. Still seems creepy.
Well, it's
He
my
swore
stream,
that
so no.
Flamingo's tongue, mwah, most superb.
I'm
he
Hina's.
advised Drusus, who was the son of the Emperor Tiberius,
And
that he should not eat
she is my ridiculous French Canadian Zoomer. I mean, I think technically speaking, she's in part custody with Levi from Attack on Titan, but hey, you know, that's fine. It's fine. Special Canadian. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. I think we're yeah. I don't know about that. We're getting to know each other. I think that's kind of where we're at right now. I think that's fine. I mean, it's too cold here, so he doesn't want to. So he doesn't want to tie the knot. Yeah. All right.
tops because they were for the commoners. Frankly, this guy kind of seems like an ass. But I think that my favorite story of Apicius is that when he heard someone boast that the shrimp from the Libyan coast were larger and sweeter than those in his own hometown of Miniturne, Apicius hired a boat, sailed across.
Well, I mean, yeah, we can talk about that. We can talk about that down the line. I don't mind cold, but then I also have to live in Canada. I don't know about that. We can talk, yeah.
Across the Mediterranean Sea, and when he got there, some fishermen showed him their catch, and he was just like, meh, I've seen bigger, and turned his boat right around, didn't even get out. Sadly, all of this opulence led to quite the tragic end for poor Apicius. As Seneca wrote, having spent a fortune of 100 million sestertii on his kitchen, spent all the gifts he had received from the imperial court, and thus swallowed up his income in lavish hospitality, Apicius found that he had only 10 million sestertii left. Afraid of dying in relative poverty, he poisoned himself. Now, while it's always hard to do like an exact exchange rate from ancient money to modern money, 10 million sestertii would still be like between $3 and $5
yeah, exactly.
million.
We
So
just
throwing
yeah.
yourself over it.
We're just getting to know each other at this point.
Anyway, after his death, the name
I'm not really
Apicius
pushing
became
anything,
synonymous
honestly.
with opulence
Just getting to
and
know each
a
other.
love of food. And
Very
that's
fun person.
why 300 years later,
See where
when the
things
De
go.
Quoquinaudia was written, the author gives full credit
They
to
draw
that
a Roman
first
hat on
century
Goku.
Roman.
Hey, hang on. I've watched Dragon Ball Z and I've watched Dragon Ball. I did watch Super up until the whatever it was, the big tournament arc. I was not a fan of where Super went, but I do love the classic Dragon Ball, and I do love Dragon Ball Z. Not Majin Buu. I was kind of done with it at that point, but yeah. God, that's right. I did watch GT. I think it gets unfairly maligned. I will take it over. Really, considering your Dragon Ball autism there, Hina, I figured you would have like seen it multiple times at this point. But no, I do know Dragon Ball Z. It is most certainly not my favorite anime at all, but I respect it. I respect it as a very solid series that set the groundwork for well, a lot of anime. It's kind of really consequential in a lot of ways. So no, I respect it. I love I love a lot of aspects about it. Power leveling kind of got annoying at certain points, but I think generally it's a very, very fun, engaging series. Okay, so yes, I have heard that the super manga is way better than the anime. I've not read it myself, so I can't judge. Like I said, just kind of super. I had a lot of issues with it. I think it started out with neat concepts, and then it just kind of fell apart at a certain point. GT is unfairly okay. Is that a positive or is that a negative there? Just drop now. I'm bringing it. Yeah, I gotcha.
As Arnold Schwarzenegger would say, let's get back to the muscles. After about 5 minutes, take a look, and if most of the muscles have opened, you're good to go. Now, if they haven't, give them another minute, but you want to make sure that any muscles that haven't opened, you don't eat. They're dead. But once they are ready, go ahead and take the pot off the heat and dish up your mussels. Nice to include a little broth with them. All right, here we go. In Mitulis, ancient Roman mussels.
Oh, okay. So you do like GT.
Give 'em a
Fair
shot.
enough.
So if you don't have one of those fancy little forks that they have
Yeah,
at
hey, yeah.
restaurants, which I don't,
We can both talk about how it has its
is I
charms
actually
to it,
use
and I
one
mean,
of
hey,
the shells,
I'll be
like
real.
this,
I'll take
to
Super
pull
Saiyan
out
4
the
over,
muscle from
yeah.
the other shell, like so.
Yeah, I'll take Super Saiyan 4 over some of like Super Saiyan God
you
has
can eat.
gotten obnoxious because it's just like it just keeps going. It's like you think Super Saiyan God would be the end, but it's like it just keeps fucking going. There's so many
They're nice.
forms to it.
Really, you're getting
Super
a lot
Saiyan
of the
4
muscle
is
flavor.
like very
The
different
Liquamen or
and fun.
Garum, I mean, it adds salt to it. It definitely, kind of tastes a little oceany, but it's not fishy at all. I do wish I had some butter. I miss butter, but they're really, really quite good. I can and will be eating this entire bowl. I look forward to making more of Apicius' recipes, and if you have one that you want to see me do, just let me know in the comments. Maybe steer away from the Dormouse and Flamingo, but you never know. So make sure to hit that like button, and I will see you next time on Tasting History.
Well, it's a good thing I don't like mussels because that actually I was not hungry watching that.
'Twas the sound that some poor baker heard that fateful autumn day in 79 AD when
Oh,
Mount
the pump.
Vesuvius
Yep.
blew its top and showered his bakery in hot ash and gas, carbonizing a loaf of bread in the process.
Yeah, just look at that. Like as like horrifying as Pompeii as the eruption of Vesuvius that avalanched onto Pompeii is, we have a perfect preservation of this entire Roman city. Like people just living their lives, doing their thing until they got smoked and preserved and lavaed. It looks like it came out of a volcano. Kind of does a little bit. It kind of does, but yeah, it's just a big old loaf of bread. Dragon Ball Daiyama Super Saiyan 4 isn't as cool as GTC. I'm not familiar with Daiyama. I never played a whole lot of the video games. I was mostly just in it for the anime, honestly.
Not to be seen for 1800 years. Sucks for him, but great for us, because today we are going to take a look at that most iconic ancient Roman loaf of bread, the Panis Quadratus.
We should watch it.
True
Okay,
Roman bread.
I'd be down for that.
True
Yeah,
Romans. This time on Tasting History.
it was the last. Oh shit. Yeah. We can talk about that.
So as
Be
we
down to,
saw
like,
in the episode a few weeks ago on
do
Apicius,
a
we have a
well,
decent
whatever.
number
Yeah, we
of
can figure out a way to
recipes
watch it.
from ancient Rome, but we don't have one for bread. What we do know of their bread comes from writings about bread, not really recipes, pictures done in frescoes, and then the burnt loaves from Pompeii and Herculaneum. Now, a lot of people have recreated this loaf of bread, and I will link to some of those resources in the description, but I'm going to take my cue from London chef Giorgio Locatelli, who recreated this loaf some years back for the British Museum. And if it's good enough for the British Museum, then it's good enough for me. Though, I've actually made some changes, so maybe it's not. Anyway, like 90% of breads out there, Chef Locatelli assumes that this is made of flour, water, yeast, and salt. And when I first made it, those are the only ingredients that I ended up using. And it made this lovely, beautiful loaf.
Oh, that does look really good.
Rather bland. And so I ended up doing it again. Now that first loaf, I only used whole wheat flour, gorgeous color. This second loaf that I'm doing today, looks rather different, but I'm hoping that the flavor is better because I'm adding in some herbs. So for this loaf, you will need 1,000 grams of flour, 250 grams of biga or freshly fed sourdough starter, 3 teaspoons of
Oh,
salt,
doing sourdough even better.
400 to 500 milliliters of
Oh
lukewarm
god, I
water,
just want like a
and then some dry
slice of
herbs. I used
sourdough
about a
bread
half teaspoon of fennel
fresh
and
baked,
a teaspoon of hyssop.
with some butter.
Also, the
That's all
amounts
you
of those
need.
ingredients are a little bit variable depending on how loose your starter is. My starter ended up being a little tighter than I usually like, so I ended up using that whole 500 milliliters of water, but you might not need it if you have a loose starter. So the first question you probably have is, what kind of flour do I use? Well, you got options, kid. And for answers, we are going to go to that most prolific of ancient Roman writers, Pliny the Elder. There is no grain that displays a greater avidity than wheat, and none that absorbs a greater quantity of nutriment. With all propriety, I may justly call winter wheat the very choicest of all the varieties of wheat. It is white, destitute of all flavor, and not oppressive to the stomach.
Oh, boring then.
Sounds
Okay.
like Pliny would have been a fan of Wonder Bread. Now, Pliny goes into extensive detail about the different wheats of the
Basic
empire.
bitch.
He talks about their weight, their color, their flavor, yada, yada, yada. But he saves the top 3 spots for
cooking
the
all
wheats
this.
of Boeotia in modern-day
I actually
Greece,
do make my own
the
sourdough
Isle of
bread.
Sicily, and Egypt.
I have a starter I keep in the
Then
fridge,
Pliny
and
talks
then I
about
kind of
flours
add
made
to it
from
until
other
it gets
grains
big
that
enough.
The majority of
And
the people
then
would eat,
I'll do a
like
sourdough
barley,
loaf maybe
rice,
once
spelt,
every
sesame,
month or so.
and the wonderfully
And
named
if I get too much sourdough, like if the starter builds up too much, I'll just do a pancake with it. It's sour as the name implies, but you can just add like some honey to it or a little bit of sugar, and then I'll just do like some maple syrup on top or some fruit, some butter. It's still always a little bit. It's a little too sour for like what you think of for a pancake, but it's still tasty. And then and once in a while I'll just make a big old loaf of bread, and oh god, it's so good, so good, and it's way healthier for you too because it's like I get like really good quality flour where it's not like brominated and enriched with niacin and all this other shit. It's just like good quality flour, and oh man, the difference it's night and day difference. Yeah.
Or African panic grass. Ha! So for this loaf, I ended up using half buckwheat, bad name because it's not a wheat, and half whole wheat. And I'll show you, it really changes the look of the loaf once we're all done. But you can use whatever flours you want. Pliny also has a lot to say about leaveners. He talks about one that's made from millet and must, or the skins of fresh wine grapes, and that is where the yeast would come from, actually the yeast that's on the skins. And then he talks about one made from barm. In Gaul and Spain, where they make a drink by steeping corn, they employ the foam which thickens on the surface as a leaven. Hence it is that the bread in those countries is lighter than that made elsewhere. And just a note, by corn, he means grain, not like American corn. And then there's the kind that I'm going to use, which is just regular old sourdough which pulls its yeast from the air. Good old California air yeast. Not sure why that's southern, but whatever. So first, take your water, lukewarm or room temperature is fine, and stir in your salt. Then mix your herbs into the flour. Then take your flour and dump it out onto a flat surface and create a ring, or what's called a fontaine. Then, in the words of Johnny Cash, pour that yeast in that burning ring of flour, and start to work the flour into the sourdough starter with one hand while you pour the salt water slowly with the other.
I was just throwing
Then
like
just keep mixing
a
as the
big
dough
old bowl.
comes together.
less
Like I
cleanup.
said, you might not need all of that water, so just kind of keep an eye on it. Once it comes together, stop adding water. If it's actually too wet, then just throw some more flour in there and you're good to go. Then go ahead and knead your dough. I kneaded it by hand. It took about 15 minutes to get kind of a nice smooth dough. But if you have a bread maker, you can go ahead and use that. I wouldn't use a stand mixer because this is a lot of heavy dough and you might burn out that motor. But if you do have a bread mixer, no shame in using it, especially because then you'll have a free hand to tap that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss another episode of Tasting History, which would be a disaster. Not Pompeii and Vesuvius, but a close second. Now, once your dough is kneaded to perfection, place it in a bowl, cover it, and let it rise for 90 minutes to 2 hours, or until it about doubles in size. So now, a lot of classical writers wrote about bread and wheat and all of these ingredients, so let's take a look at why relying on Pliny the Elder is so apropos for this bread. Gaius Plinius Secundus, aka Pliny the Elder, best known as an author and philosopher.
You want to buy my bot a sub? I mean, you can. I mean, if you're going to buy it for someone, I prefer it to be like someone in the community, or with like the random gift subs. I think it makes sense to, they'll like give it to randos who might be encouraged to try it. Yeah. Hey, it's your money. You do whatever you want with it, man. I'm just saying, I think it makes more sense to give it to humans.
But overachiever that he was, happened to also be the admiral of the imperial fleet moored at Misenum north of Naples on that fateful day in 79 AD. Sadly, his nephew, Pliny
Thank you. All right, give it to us, sure, whatever, man. That is really weird. But hey, you're up to 50, very nice. It's still so weird to me you can do that. All right, Twitch. I mean, it should. I guess it still counts as an account, but I also assigned it to like Stream Elements and one of the other bot website things. So you think there'd be like some lock on it, but okay, sure, whatever.
And he gives us some insight into just how his uncle died. Here's where the story picks up just after the eruption. My uncle's scholarly acumen saw at once that it was important enough for a closer inspection, and he ordered a boat to be made ready, telling me I could come with him if I wished. I replied that I preferred to go on with my studies. A chance to check out a massive black, unnatural, looming cloud coming over the horizon, and this kid decides that he's going to stay home and do homework. I mean, I know I'm not one to talk, but nerd alert. He tells how his uncle took several ships to go to Stabiae to check on a friend. And it's a little odd because clearly he was worried about his friend enough to go down there, but then when he got there, they packed up some stuff, put it on the ship, and then returned to his friend's villa for dinner, while they watched broad sheets of fire and leaping flames from Mount Vesuvius. My uncle tried to allay the fears of his companions by repeatedly declaring that these were nothing but bonfires left by the peasants in their terror.
Oh, those poor bastards.
You should have terror too, Pliny. You should have terror. But clearly he did not, because after dinner, he went and took a nap.
Jesus
Finally,
Christ, man.
some hours later, and only because the courtyard had gotten so filled up with pumice and ash that they were in danger of being trapped inside, did they decide to hoof it, with pillows strapped to their heads to ward off falling objects. So when they eventually get to the ships, Pliny realizes that due to the earthquakes caused by the volcano, the waves are way too high and they're trapped. So he sits down on the beach and takes a rest. Then the flames and smell of sulfur, which gave warning of the approach of fire, drove the others to take flight and roused him to stand up. He stood, leaning on two slaves, and then suddenly collapsed. When daylight returned on the 26th, 2 days later, his body was found intact and uninjured, still fully clothed,
What deserves
and looking
love?
more like sleep than death.
And
that's how most people died
is
that
pretty
day.
good for a
It
clanker.
wasn't lava, it was noxious gas.
And true,
falling
always
ash.
there. You're absolutely right.
And that's kind of lucky for us, because instead of... And that's
I
how
missed what
still
happened.
fully clothed and looking more like sleep than death.
No.
And that's
Well,
how
that's-
most people
what a
died
way to
that
go.
day. It wasn't lava, it was noxious gas and falling ash. And that's kind of lucky for us, because instead of being completely flattened, Pompeii and Herculaneum are wonderfully preserved, including their bakeries. One such bakery, or pistrinum, is that of Popidius Priscus. He had his own mill with 4 giant millstones made of basalt lava. Foreshadow much? They were likely driven by donkeys to grind the grain into flour. Then in a separate room, the dough was mixed using huge mechanical paddles. So if you are using a bread machine to make this, that's okay, because they didn't do it by hand either. Popidius approves. In fact, it seems that the only part of the process that was done by hand was the actual shaping of the loaves. And so that's what we're going to do right now.
Huh.
So set your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 205 degrees Celsius and turn your dough out onto a lightly floured surface. Then knock out the air. Then shape it into a ball and set it on either a baking sheet or a bread cloche like the one that I used. And if you are using a bread cloche, be careful because they're delicate. I broke mine today. I'm very sad about it. Then pat the loaf down into sort of a flat-topped cake and cover it and let it rise for another 20 minutes or so. Once your second rise is done, we're going to go ahead and give this loaf its iconic shape. So take a piece of baking string and tie it right around the middle of the loaf and cinch it so it looks like my waist in pants that I haven't worn since before quarantine. Now for the lines on top, there's a lot of debate, but there's debate on everything to do with this loaf pretty much, so using Occam's razor, I'm going to go with the simplest explanation and use the string that we've already got to make 4 deep impressions on the top, which creates 8 separate sections. Then stick your finger in the middle of the loaf to make an indentation to keep the bread from cracking, and slide the bread into the oven for about 40 to 45 minutes. That probably makes the most sense.
Keep it simple.
If you are using a cloche, remove the lid about 30 minutes into baking so it can darken up a little bit.
Ooh.
Now my loaf did not need to darken because I used that dark buckwheat. So honestly, it kind of looks like the burnt loaf from Herculaneum, but it smells fantastic as it's baking. So once the loaf is done, remove it from the oven and set it on a cooling rack to cool. So here we are, our panis quadratus, or Roman loaf of bread, and you can see the vast difference between just using 2 different types of flour. So, you know, use what you want, but just know that some are going to look more pleasing than others. If you're doing this for pictures, I'd go with the lighter flour, it's prettier, but this other one, the darker one, smells a lot better than the other did. So let's cut into this.
If you add a bunch of herbs and spices, hell yeah, it's going to be really good then.
It is definitely dense.
Oh, wow.
I kind of knew that by the shape. So let's take a little bite here. I don't like the color. I gotta say. It smells good, but I don't like the color. All right. So it's definitely better than the previous loaf that I had tried, but still not great. Current Italians do it better, I think. But then again, we don't actually know because all that we've got to go on are the looks of the bread and some of what Pliny tells us.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit hard to judge without getting the full recipe.
Sometimes you win and sometimes you don't. If you're interested in other ancient Roman recipes, I have a playlist down here of all the Roman recipes that I've done so far on the show, so I will see you next time on Tasting History. Have you had a long day of fighting and besieging the ancient city of Troy?
Uh-huh.
Looking for that little pick-me-up halfway through your 10-year journey home to Ithaca?
Sure am.
Well, then have I got the brew for you. Kykeon, the drink of heroes. Throughout ancient Greek myths and histories, Kykeon pops up time and time again. So today I'm going to use the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer to try to recreate this legendary potion as best I can. This time on Tasting History.
It looks like a yogurt-based drink, but I can't say I've heard of this one before.
The drink Kykeon crops up in ancient Greek sources over and over again. But what exactly was it? There is no recipe per se, and several of the sources have conflicting descriptions.
Gonna clinker
but
I
at
got
least
dumplings?
in the Iliad and the Odyssey, we get a list of the ingredients. In the Iliad, the Greek warrior
Dumplings do sound
Machaon
good,
is
too.
badly wounded by the Trojan Paris, and King
What type of
Nestor
dumplings
takes
are we talking
Machaon
about?
back to his tent so that his captive servant Hecamede can take care of him and nurse him back to health. Fair-haired Hecamede made a potion for them. First, she moved a table up to them, a fine, polished table with a dark, gleaming stand.
That
On
sounds
it,
tasty.
she placed a bronze dish with an onion in it as relish to the drink, and also yellow honey. Next came the heap of holy barley meal. Thus, in a cup, the lovely woman made a Kykeon for them with Pramnian wine. She grated goat's cheese into it with a bronze grater, and sprinkled
Interesting.
white barley meal on it. And she bade them drink when she had made ready the potion. And it seems to have done its work because in the next verse, they're both up on their feet, like laughing and having a great time. Yay, Kykeon. That is definitely a better outcome than what happens after someone drinks Kykeon in the Odyssey. After escaping the Cyclops and almost being eaten on an island of giants, Odysseus
that's what
and
I'm
his
here
crew,
for,
with only one
mind-expanding
ship left, find
material.
themselves the guests of the beautiful sorceress Circe. She brought them in and made them sit on chairs and seats, and made for them a potion of cheese and barley meal and yellow honey with Pramnian wine. But in the food she mixed baneful drugs that they might utterly forget their native land. Now when she had given them the potion and they had drunk it off,
Well, it just sounds like
then
alcohol
she
anyway.
presently smote them with her wand and penned them in the styes. Spoiler alert, she turned them into pigs. Well, all but Odysseus, who had really great plot armor throughout the Odyssey.
Yeah, he really does.
So with the exception of a side of onion in the Iliad and baneful drugs in the Odyssey, we have all of the ingredients for our Kikion. Barley meal, honey, goat cheese, and Pramnian wine. Now as for the
Okay, I'll be real. As weird as that combo sounds, just like with my experience in the kitchen and cooking and familiarity with a lot of different flavor profiles, that actually sounds pretty good. We'll see how it's made, but I could see that working actually.
efficiency, we get clues from the name. Kikion comes from the verb kikeo, which means to churn or mix, with the connotation of until thickened. And that makes sense because in his writings on Homeric hymns, the 12th century Archbishop Eustathius of Thessaloniki, try saying that 5 times fast, because even 1 time slow is rather hard. But he said that Kikion is not quite food, not quite drink, but something like a drinkable soup. And that means that we're going to have to add some heat into this recipe, which Homer does not mention, but, you know, Homer wasn't a chef, so I'll give him poetic license. So for your Kikion, you will need a half cup or about 100 grams of barley ground into a meal, 1 cup or more of dry red wine. Don't worry, I'll explain the or more later. 1/3 cup or 50 grams of goat cheese, and 2 tablespoons of honey. So first things first, you're not going to need your entire bottle of wine, so go ahead and pour your glass while you cook. La 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 la. Cheers. Now add your cup of wine into a small saucepan, and then stir in your barley meal, the goat cheese, and the honey. Mix everything together as best you can, then set it over low heat and stirring continuously, bring it to a simmer. Once it starts to thicken a bit after about 3 minutes, take it off the heat. And then you just pour it into a glass and wait for it to cool down to a drinkable temperature. Now, if it's thickened up a little too much, this is the time that you will add that extra red wine just until it's a consistency that you feel like you're going to want to drink. So while my Kikion cools, let us look at where this most interesting of concoctions came from. And for that, we must travel back to the time of the gods. Yeah, ancient Greece.
Yeah, I'm gonna be drinking this later, that's for sure.
Most everything in ancient Greece had something to do with the gods, and Kikion is no exception. And like I said, the ingredients vary a little bit depending on the source, but there are always 2 constants, the barley and the wine, both of which have strong ties to the gods. For the barley, we must look no further than the goddess of the harvest, Demeter, who was often depicted with a laurel of barley or else with poppies, which grow in fields of barley. Some ancient Greek and Roman coins depict her head on one side and a stalk of barley on the other. And it makes sense that Demeter is associated with this drink because not only was she the goddess of the harvest, but she also presided over the cycle of life and death. And as we saw in the Iliad, Machaon was likely mortally wounded, but very badly wounded. He could have died, and just a sip of this Kikion brings him back to health. You're not going to get back to health without a little help from Demeter and her barley. The drink was also a key component of the Eleusinian Mysteries, ancient initiation rites for the cult of Demeter and Persephone held at the sanctuary of Eleusis. If you've ever played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you can actually go visit the sanctuary in the game, which is kind of cool to like see it, you know, as an artist's rendering and walk around. Part of the ceremony took place in a great hall called the Telesterion, and revealing anything that had to do with the Telesterion was punishable by death. And it's likely during this part of the ritual where the initiates would fast and then drink Kikion, which would cause them to have visions of the gods.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I got drunk right now, this would be
getting drunk on an
wild.
empty stomach, but more than likely, it was because they added extra
I'm sure it'd feel like-
hallucinogens to the drink, or
Oh, that
it was
too.
caused by ergot, which is a fungus that grows on barley and some other grains that can cause hallucinations. So now
Yeah.
if the
God,
penalty
I
for
imagine that'd
revealing
be
anything about
insane.
these rites is death, then how do we know anything about them? And for that, we have to thank those bad boys of ancient Greece, the playwrights. First, we have
I'm
Diagoras
good on
of
that.
Melos, who revealed many of the secrets
That actually can
in some
get
of his poems.
kind of
and
dangerous the
according to
longer you go on
Cicero,
a fast.
was killed for
You want to
doing
be
so.
very careful about
Then there's the
reintroducing
great playwright
food, especially if it's
Aeschylus, who
been
was
more than a
actually
few
put on
days.
trial for revealing too much of the secrets of the rites in his plays. Lucky for us and for him, he was acquitted, possibly because he had a god on his side, the god of the theater. And it would make sense because it's that god that gave us our second ingredient, wine. Dionysus, god of theater, fertility, and wine. And hands down, the coolest god of the bunch. Now, the wine that's mentioned by Homer is Pramnian wine. So this wine is a special wine from ancient Greece that has quite the close connection with Dionysus himself. According to the writer Athenaeus, the wine originated on Mount Pramnos on the Isle of Icaria, a stronghold for the cult of Dionysus. And the inhabitants of the island claimed that the vine where the grapes grew to make this wine had been given to them from Dionysus himself. And to this day,
That's
they
good.
still
It's
make
just-
wine on Icaria using an indigenous grape called Phociano.
Ah.
Now, we don't know that that is the grape that was used to make Pramnian wine.
Yeah, but we can call
but
it that.
Could be. What we do know is that the wine that they make there today is nothing like Pramnian wine of ancient Greece, and that's probably for the best. Because it was described as black wine which should never be drunk without watering it down first, and both Hippocrates and Galen said that it should be reserved for its therapeutic
You have a
qualities.
good night, Snip.
Archbishop Eustathius, there's that name again, said, "The Pramnian, as they say, is fat and strengthening, and it's not suitable for quenching thirst, but rather for alleviating satiety." So if you ate too much and you're a little bloated, that's the time to reach for the Pramnian wine. It was basically the ancient Greek Pepto-Bismol. The Greek grammarian Hesychius hedged his bets when describing the wine as a praiseworthy, although hard wine. And Aristophanes said that the Athenians didn't like it, for the Athenian people did not like hard and sour poets, nor hard Pramnian wine, which contracts the eyebrows and the stomach. But they prefer a fragrant wine, ripe and flavored like nectar. I think I would have been an Athenian. But my two favorite allusions to Pramnian wine come in verse, something the Greeks really excelled at. Ephippas of Olynthus, most famous for his chronicles of Alexander the Great, sang, "Oh, how luscious, oh, how fine, is the Pramnian lesbian wine. All who are brave and all who are wise, much the wine of Lesbos prize." Sounds like one of those songs in the Lord of the Rings books that people just always skip over. Kind of love that. Also, the term lesbian here
not
does
wrong.
not refer to the modern term lesbian, but as coming from the Isle of Lesbos, which the modern term lesbian actually comes from. Etymology is fun. Finally, there's
is
the great
indeed.
comedic playwright
Also, it's interesting how many words come from Greece and Rome as far as the Greek and Latin languages. I think it's because I mean ultimately English is a Germanic language, but the majority of the words still have a strong etymological basis in both of those. But it is technically speaking more closer to like German and Dutch in a weird way, but English is also kind of a weird hodgepodge of other stuff too. But yeah, it's fun. I think that shit is really interesting.
Aristophanes. "Shun, my boy, the Pramnian cup, nor Thasian drink, nor Chion sup, nor let your glass with Peperethian brighten, for bachelors that liquor's too exciting." The Greeks are just so cool. Anyway, we don't actually know what Pramnian wine tasted like, so I'm doing my best by getting a dark, dry red Greek wine. A dark, dry red Greek wine that I added barley to, and cheese, and honey, and should be about ready to drink by now. I'm a little scared. Okay, so here we go. Kikion. Now, you'll notice I do not have a glass like they mention in the Iliad, which is big and ornate and has handles and is supposed to be so heavy that when full, no man could lift it. I have instead what I think is probably made for margaritas, but it will just have to do.
It's not a bad vessel for it.
Here we go. To being a hero, I guess. A Greek hero. Smells like wine. Mm.
Uh-huh.
uh, it's very, very thick. It's
It looks like it.
it tastes like wine with. I mean, it tastes like what you'd think it would, which isn't good because it's wine with barley and cheese.
Oh no.
And honey and the barley. That's gonna be stuck in my teeth for a while.
Oh wow. Okay, never mind. We're not doing this one. We're not doing this one. That's too bad. That's too
cannot
bad.
in good conscience have anyone else make this.
Okay, good to
make
know.
this. I mean, if you want to, go ahead, but I'm not going to endorse Kikion at all.
I think that's fine.
It's
Yeah,
really
that's
interesting.
fine.
Even if you didn't cook it, I think it would have the same flavor. It would just be even more like just things floating in it. This at least it kind of reminds me of like boba tea, which I don't really like because of the texture. Because the barley pieces just like, and I don't. Maybe it's also some of the cheese isn't like completely melted. I don't know. It's not. I can see why. I can see why maybe it lost favor after the heroic age because you have to be a hero to drink this. Kikion. I'm gonna take another.
Yeah, come on, you can at least finish it. Or add some more wine.
That wine is really dry. That wine is really dry. Even the honey, it just doesn't. Oh, and I can taste the cheese in that one. That's weird. That's not good. That's not good at all. Wow.
It actually sounded like a good combo. That's surprising.
I'm glad that I did this and saw, what it could be. There are different versions written about, but this is essentially going to be what it is, and it's not good. It's not good. But that's what it's all about, right? Tasting history. So that's the name of the show. He said the name of the show, Mom. Anyway, like this video, subscribe, and I will see you next time on Tasting History.
Oh, that's too bad.
Who doesn't know the Roman frickin' Empire, am I right? When it comes to branding, they're at the top. They're up there with Coke and Disney and McDonald's.
Damn right.
So I think it's pretty big of them to have given credit when making today's recipe to a little bit lesser of an empire, someone that was not so much a household name.
The bronze medal.
A nemesis at that. Pulum parthicum, or Parthian chicken, is a classic Roman dish from the Dere Coquinaria. So today, that's what we're making, and it'll give us an opportunity to look at the Parthian Empire and see just why that empire got the credit for this dish. This time on Tasting History. Pulum parthicum, Parthian chicken. Open the chicken at the rear end and in the square shape. Pound pepper, lovage, a little caraway, moisten with liquamen, blend with wine. Put the chicken in an earthenware pot and pour the sauce over it. Dissolve strong asafoetida in lukewarm water, pour it over the chicken, and let it cook. Sprinkle with pepper and serve. So is this chicken Roman or Parthian? Well, it has a distinctly Roman ingredient, caraway seeds, which were grown in Central Europe at the time, but then it also has a distinctly Parthian ingredient, asafoetida, which came to Rome along the Silk Road from Parthia. Asafoetida, or asafoetida as it's sometimes called, is the extract of a plant of the same name that's grown in the mountainous regions of Iran and Afghanistan. It was a very popular ingredient in ancient Rome, especially after its North African cousin, Silphium, went extinct. And I would actually love to do an entire episode just on Silphium, so if that's something you might like to see, let me know in the comments. So I've never actually tried asafoetida. I bought it just yesterday to make this recipe, and I undid the top, and I have to say, it lives up to its name, and so I'm a little trepidatious to actually eat it. Its name, asafoetida, comes from asa, meaning gum, and foetida, meaning fetid or stinking, and it stinks. It smells like an apartment that I had back in college where over the summer a cat died in the wall and nobody knew, and the apartment was in Arizona, so yeah. Of course, it's going to be a popular ingredient in ancient Rome, and I can't wait to try it. Anyway, for this recipe, what you'll need is 1 chicken, 3 to 4 pounds, 1.5 teaspoons of pepper, plus a little extra for garnish, 1 tablespoon of chopped lovage. So lovage might be a little hard to find. I actually got some because I had a viewer send it to me, freeze-dried from England. Very, very excited. Kind of smells like, celery, but a little more potent. So thank you to James, Eddie, and Bodie for picking this wonderful lovage and sending it my way here to the States. I do have to warn you, after some research about lovage, I found out you're not supposed to eat it if you're pregnant or have kidney problems. So, you know, maybe stick with celery if
Oh, Abe Tenchi, how's it going?
you can't
Welcome
find
in. Welcome in.
1.5
How
teaspoons
was
of
your
caraway
stream?
seeds, 3 tablespoons
We
of
are,
liquamen.
just to
Now
let you
that
guys
is-
know, you came in when I had to step out for like 1 minute there. Hello from the Brad stream. Hey, Dishmala, how's it going, buddy? Yeah, so we are just kind of a little chill night here. Just kind of, it's been a long week, so
I'm Commander
just
Shepard, and this is my
thank you for
favorite
the
store
follow,
on the
buddy.
Citadel.
We're just doing a little React slop tonight, but since this is technically the last night of Roman week, although I'm going to be doing a little bonus stream tomorrow at some point. But yeah, just wanted to have a little fun wrap up on things. So we are doing a tasting history with Max Miller, and we're kind of doing a variety of recipes here. They're all from his ancient Greek, Roman, and Mesopotamian recipes. I'm back with the right now. Good to see you again, kitten. Yeah, it's always nice seeing people pop in from the raids. But yeah, how is your stream, Tinch? Hi, Ave Fester. How's it going, buddy? But yeah, we are doing. In fact, I'll just go ahead and restart it for you guys. Might as well. Like I said, I missed a minute of it too. I had to go and check on something. I just kind of let it run there. So this is Parthian chicken from ancient Rome.
Who doesn't know the Roman frickin' Empire? Am I right? When it comes to branding, they're at the top. They're up there
Goddamn
with
right.
Coke and Disney and McDonald's. So I think it's pretty big of them
Oh,
to have
scuff issues.
given
Ow,
credit
that's a bummer.
when making today's
Yeah,
recipe.
hope things
to
pick up for her
a
there.
little bit
That's a
lesser
pain
of
in
an
the ass.
empire.
I remember-
Someone that was not
I remember seeing there was a few issues she had whenever I was hanging out in the stream there.
so much a household name, and a nemesis at that. Pulum Parthicum, or Parthian chicken, is a classic Roman dish from the Dere Coquinaria. So today, that's what we're making, and it'll give us an opportunity to look at the Parthian Empire and see just why that empire got the credit for this dish. This time on Tasting History.
Oh, hey, welcome in, Tenchi. Yeah, sorry, having some stuff there.
Pulum Parthicum, Parthian chicken. Open the chicken at the rear end and in the square shape. Pound pepper, lovage, a little caraway, moisten with liquamen, blend with wine. Put the chicken in
Yeah, you
an
can't go wrong with
earthenware
wine.
pot and pour the sauce over it. Dissolve strong asafoetida in lukewarm water. Pour it over the chicken and
Oh,
let it
like the
cook.
game? Yeah, that's
Sprinkle
too
with
bad.
pepper
Wait, isn't
and
that
serve.
haven't you played that game before, or is this a different DBZ game? Did like a new one come out recently? Is that like the big thing?
So is this chicken Roman or Parthian? Well, it has a distinctly Roman ingredient, caraway seeds, which were grown in Central Europe at the time, but then it also has a distinctly Parthian ingredient, asafoetida, which came to Rome along the Silk Road from Parthia. Asafoetida, or asafoetida as it's sometimes called, is the extract of a plant of the same name that's grown in the mountainous regions of Iran and Afghanistan. It was a very popular ingredient in ancient Rome, especially after its North African cousin, Silphium, went extinct. And I would actually love to do an entire episode just on Silphium, so if that's something you might like to see, let me know in the comments.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting how like we think of, herbs and spices in the modern sense. And, a lot of them that, kind of became famous from the spice trades as being sort of like the definitive spices. But there are so many various plants and, well, I guess, yeah, just mostly plants that have gone extinct over the years. And we no longer have those like from ancient recipes. He was playing the model game that came out of, oh, okay.
So I've never actually tried asafoetida. I bought it just yesterday to make this recipe, and I undid the top, and I have to say, it lives up to its name, and so I'm a little trepidatious to actually eat it. Its name,
Okay.
asafoetida, comes from asa, meaning gum, and fetida, meaning
Yeah, Ian, if you're still in chat, what's the DBZ game that you play a lot?
fetid or stinking, and it stinks. It smells like an apartment that I had back in college where over the summer a cat died in the wall and nobody knew, and the apartment was in Arizona, so
Oh, God.
yeah. Of course, it's going to be a popular ingredient in ancient Rome, and I can't wait to try it. Anyway, for this recipe, what you'll need is 1 chicken, 3 to 4 pounds, 1.5 teaspoons of pepper, plus a little extra for garnish, 1 tablespoon of chopped lovage. So lovage might be a little hard to find. I actually got some because I had a viewer send it to me, freeze-dried from
testing those
England. Very, very excited. Kind of smells like, smells a bit like celery.
Yeah, I did have
but
the stream
a little more
on the
potent.
background there. It
So
looked like
thank
you were
to
playing around
James,
with
Eddie, and Bodie for
Broly for a
picking this
bit.
wonderful lovage
I did see
and
that.
sending it my way here to the States. I do have to warn you, after some research about lovage, I found out you're not supposed to eat it if you're pregnant or have kidney problems. So, you know, maybe stick with celery if you want.
It's weird to think
or
that
if you can't
celery leaf
find
would be
lovage.
toxic.
1.5 teaspoons of caraway seeds, 3 tablespoons of liquamin. Now that is garum, which I'm sure many people found my channel from when I discussed garum. It's that ancient Roman fermented fish sauce. So I'm actually using colatura di alici, which is a fermented fish sauce rather than my quick garum that I made in that episode. This is going to have a little bit more of the umami flavor that you're going to get. You can also use just a regular Eastern Asian fish sauce as well. 1 cup or 250 milliliters of wine. You can use red, you can use white, it doesn't matter, it's up to you. 3/4 teaspoon of asafoetida powder. Now if you can find the actual root, good for you, but most people are going to find this in a powder. If it's yellow, there's more turmeric in it, so you might want to use a little bit more, maybe like a full teaspoon. If it's brown, then there's less turmeric in it, so just stick with that 3/4 teaspoon. And 1/4 cup lukewarm water. So first we have to prepare the
Wait,
chicken.
how's she
And
getting a history lesson?
translation, I found many translations, and none of them really agree on what it's saying there in that first sentence. I kind of read it as, you know, cut open and then set like a square, which makes me think of like a butterfly or a spatchcock chicken. And I kind of love that word, spatchcocked. So that's what I'm going to be doing, but you can go ahead and truss it or cut it up. You can do whatever you want, but just know that the cooking times that I'm giving today are for a spatchcocked chicken. So if you are going to spatchcock your chicken, make sure to clean it out and then with kitchen shears, cut out the spine. Then flip it back over and crack the breastbone so it lays flat. If it keeps popping up, you can actually snip that breastbone as well so that it lays flat. Then set it into a baking dish and tuck in the wingtips so they don't burn. You can also cook this in like a cast iron skillet or a stainless steel pan, just anything that can go into the oven. And once you're...
Oh yeah, I guess she doesn't have any concept of that. God, that's weird to think about.
Once your bird is set,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can
Back in the
either,
day, at least like in the United
move on
States,
to the
you
rest of
watch
the recipe,
Toonami,
or you can
and if you
actually
missed
put
that
it into
episode
the
of Dragon Ball Z,
refrigerator
guess
overnight.
what? It'll air
Let
again in
skin
like
dry,
2 years.
Makes for a
Have fun with
crispier
that.
skin. When you are ready to move on, go ahead and set your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit or 230 degrees Celsius.
And you have to
Then
have your
grind up
friends like
pepper and your caraway seeds
explain
as
to you
best
what happened in
can,
that episode.
and
Like,
mix them
oh,
and the lovage
yeah,
in a bowl.
man, Frieza and
Then add
Goku,
your
they
garum, and
beat each other
finally
up
the
again
wine and
for
mix
30
together.
episodes in a row.
Then in a separate bowl, dissolve the asafoetida.
I'm glad I
in the
didn't explain
lukewarm
what dial-up
water.
is to her.
Now, for some reason, the recipe has you pouring these two sauces separately over the chicken. I don't really understand how that's going to change things, but you know what? I'm going to do as the Dere Coquinaria suggests, and first I'm going to pour the wine concoction over the chicken, and then the dissolved asafoetida mixture. Then pop it in the oven for about 40 to 45 minutes or until an instant read thermometer stuck into the breast of the bird reads 165 degrees Fahrenheit or 74 degrees Celsius. Make sure to pour yourself a glass of wine so it doesn't go to waste. Now, if you're worried about the bird drying out while it's baking, you can go ahead and baste it a few times throughout the cooking process. I didn't. It wasn't in the original recipe, so I didn't do it, but it's probably a good practice. Now, while the chicken bakes, let us look at the empire that gets all
those
the
cell
credit
phones.
for this dish.
I'd say the brick cell phones were like an 80s thing. 90s cell phones are
Now,
actually
I'm
like
not going to
fairly
go
small.
into the long and rather complex history of the Parthian Empire and how they came to be, but it is pretty impressive. Essentially, Alexander the Great had this huge empire that stretched from Europe to India, and then when he died, it broke up into smaller warring factions. You
Yeah,
had
it
the
immediately fell apart as soon as he died. His empire lasted 10 years. How impressive! And yet he's called Alexander the Great. Yeah.
the
Wow, what a guy.
Greco-Bactrians, you had the Seleucids, and then over here you had ancient Rome, which was starting to grow and kind of come in as well. And here, these little people called the Parni kind of squeeze into the table and are like, okay, all right, okay, and finally, all right. We've quickly taken over
Oh, God,
all
that
of
does sound
Iran,
painful.
Iraq, and parts of the Caucasus and Syria. It was really pretty impressive. And what they were famous for at this point was something called the Parthian shot. And that's when the archers, during a feigned retreat, or maybe a real retreat, on horseback, would turn around and shoot at their enemies who were coming at them. And it's actually where we get the phrase parting shot. So that's kind of cool, right?
That's
But as cool
really
as
interesting.
etymology is, what we're going to be discussing today is what they were famous for later on, when they kind of settled down, stopped trying to impress everyone, and realized that what they were good at was business and being the middleman of the Silk Road. Starting around 90 AD, the Silk Road ran from northern China, uninterrupted, all the way to Rome, and it was controlled by just 4 states. Now, most of the goods being traded were coming from either China on one side or Rome on the other side. They were the 2 big players, but in the middle, you had these 2 smaller empires. You had the Kushan Kingdom. They had lots of spices.
Oh yeah, it's so cool. It's such an interesting bit of history. Like, just essentially what we're talking about is empires that were made by, as he said, middlemen, but also just like, you're there to facilitate trade. Like, that's all they did, and they become very successful from that. But yeah, like, there were so many goods that were imported back and forth from Rome and China, and like the wealthy people of Rome would get Chinese silks, and the Chinese would get Roman wines. I think they also imported garum too, if I remember correctly. And that's where the whole idea of like East Asian fish sauces that we know of now came from, is them importing garum, which is the Roman fish sauce. I believe that's the case. I'm not 100% on that. But yeah, it was just facilitating trade between those two.
To trade, and they actually had a lot of the links to the even further southeast, like Indonesia and whatnot. And then you had the Parthian Empire, and if the ancient Chinese sources are to be believed, then the only things that the Parthians were trading were lions, gazelle, and large birds. So yeah, but the Romans obviously were getting their asafoetida from them, hence the name of our dish, so they were trading a few other things. But they didn't need to, because their trade was business. See, while the Kushans allowed Chinese traders to come across their lands for a small fee, once they got to the Parthian city of Merv, they were stopped. And basically, the Parthians were like, give it here. I got it. I'll take it the rest of the way. Don't worry. I got it. You know what? It's long. You're going to thank me. You're welcome. I'm doing this for you. And then they would take the goods the rest of the way to Rome and sell them at a tidy profit. It was a wonderful business model, and
also, there's an interesting story because the Chinese were very interested in coming to Rome to visit, because, of course, well, they knew about Rome, imported a lot of stuff from them. And I think the Romans did have an interest in going to China as well, but they never like really bothered with it. But there was multiple Chinese envoys that tried to get to Rome that were not able to get there because, well, yeah, there was the issue of the Parthians. But even whenever that kind of relaxed, the furthest envoy made it to Judea, I believe, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it sounds like I'm almost there, and I just want to get like a boat to take me there, and I have some goods I want to give to the emperor, and some goods I'm going to trade as well." And the ship captain's like, man, no, it's not. It's you think it's a short trip, but it's actually not. I mean, from ship here, it's going to be almost 3 years. And he's like, let me just, take those goods off your hand and trade them in. And I'll, deliver the ones that you're going to give to the Roman emperor myself. I know the guy kind of thing. And, the envoy just sort of was like, well, Okay, yeah, fine. We'll go with that. Which that would have been really interesting if China and Rome actually linked up, because that's sort of like one of those alternate history things I think would be really fascinating. Is like, what if Rome never fell, and kind of became larger and larger over time, and then like China also. I mean, China did get larger too. There was multiple dynasties, them collapsing and growing and shrinking and whatnot. But what if they had actually met up, like in the middle? What if their empires became so big that they touched up against each other? I think that'd be really fascinating. Like, what would happen at that point?
They kept tight control over their little section, their rather large section of the Silk Road. In fact, all through the Han Dynasty of 400 years, there is only record of one Chinese person getting across their lands. According to the Huhanshu, a 5th century chronicle of the latter part of the Han Dynasty, in the year 97, the great general Ban Chao sent Gan Ying as an ambassador to visit Daqian, which is what they called Rome. Anyway, Gan Ying made it all the way across Parthia to the Western Sea, which was probably the Persian Gulf, where he planned to take a ship the rest of the way.
Okay, so it was the Red Sea, not Judea. Well, I guess technically, yeah.
But when he got there and tried to hire a ship, the sailors told him, the ocean is huge.
Yes,
if you encounter winds that delay you, it can take 2 years.
Okay, yeah,
the
he's told us. That's
ocean
cool.
urges men to think of their country and get homesick, and some of them die. Now, the sailors neglected to tell him that there was a much faster and safer route over land, but you know what? Maybe he didn't ask, so, benefit of the doubt. Anyway, Gan Ying, being practical, said, well, why don't you just tell me about the Roman Empire? And so they did. He wrote it down, and he hoofed it back to China. Now, we know that Rome was
the
getting
interpretation
silk
was
from China,
interesting.
and lots of...
Don't like the idea of a Chinese empire. As someone who studied Chinese history, it's never been great for the people involved. I mean, there's always brutality with empires, for sure. I mean, there's no such thing as a nice empire. It kind of comes to the territory. Rome was pretty good about like letting people live their lives. It incorporated new things from people. It tended to not like oppress people with like insisting on Roman culture and religion being the thing. If anything, they kind of took inspiration from other countries. Had its issues for sure. Not going to pretend otherwise. No, at least what we'd say modern day issues. But yeah, the Chinese Empire, well, out of the several dynasties, they were all really fucking brutal. Like, worse to their own people. Like, the amount of just mass executions that happened on the regular is astounding. And that's also, in part because China has a huge population, always did. But holy shit, just deaths by the millions. Yeah, I was going to say, the Japanese and Chinese don't particularly like each other. I think that kind of comes to the territory.
Spices and other exotic things from the Kushan Empire and beyond. But what I find interesting were the things that Rome was sending back. Gold, silver, and rare precious stones, especially the jewel that shines at night, the moonshine pearl, and the chicken-frightening rhinoceros. I assume that the Huhanshu is referring to like the rhinoceros horn there, but I just love that they made sure to let you know that rhinoceros frightens chicken. The document also talks about glass and perfumes coming over, as well as cloth made of asbestos. And when I read that, I was like, well, they have to mean something else. But no, it's that asbestos, like the kind that was in the walls of the house where I grew up. There's actually a story of a
very
6th
true,
century
Tenchi, very
Sasanian
true.
king, Khosrau II,
Inner Asian
guests by
racism is
cleaning
incredibly
his
impressive.
asbestos napkins with fire. Magic. Haha. Another textile that they mention is silk cloth made from Roman silkworms. But you're probably asking, well, if Rome had silkworms, why are they importing silk from China? And the answer is,
well, see,
they
Dishmal,
don't,
appreciate you
and
coming
they're
in and hanging
not.
out.
What actually was happening was when the Chinese would send silk, it was in this kind of thick brocade. And then once it got to Rome, they would unravel it and re-sew it in a way that made like a very thin gauze kind of material, probably similar to what we think of as silk cloth today. But as it went back over to China, the Parthians made sure to tell the Chinese, well, yeah, they're making it with their own silkworms, so that China didn't think that they had a monopoly and hence would have to keep the price of silk down.
Interesting.
Bit unethical, but again, good business sense on the Parthian side. And silk wasn't the only time that maybe the Parthians were leaving out some details when talking to the trading partners, because they often sold Parthian furs, which were actually Russian furs. And there are stories in China of precious jewelry made with gemstones coming to China, and then once a discerning eye looked at them, they would realize they were just colored glass. Though, whether it was a Parthian deception or a Roman deception, we shall never know. What we do know is that Parthia was exporting asafoetida. So, you know, they did something right. Anyway,
You
I
mean the
think
Parthians?
it's time to say a toast to the middlemen and get back to our chicken. So at about 40 minutes into baking, go ahead and check the breast with an instant read thermometer to see if it's hit that 165 degrees Fahrenheit. If it hasn't, leave it in for a few minutes more. Then make sure to let the chicken rest for about 10 minutes before carving it up. And here we are, Parthian chicken. You want to make sure to pour some sauce on there and sprinkle with pepper. Now I'm going to slice right into the whole chicken because my chicken carving skills are lackluster at best, and I don't want to embarrass myself all over the internet, so I'm going to just cut into the whole thing. Smells wonderful. Doesn't smell at all like the asafoetida did. At all.
That is a satisfied reaction.
Okay, so it's amazing, but I don't know what I'm tasting. I don't know what I'm tasting. It's so foreign to me. I don't know if it's the asafoetida or if it's the garum, but it's wonderful. I can see why this ingredient or whatever is making this flavor came from so far and was so wonderfully prized. It is an interesting flavor. It's not a really strong flavor. You actually, when I first bit into the chicken, I didn't get it. I was like, oh, it's chicken. And then it just kind of washed over me. It's an umami flavor but one that I've never really had before. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like a really nice chanterelle mushroom, which I actually don't like. But
Yes, I hate mushrooms too.
So you get the wonderful flavor without the texture of mushrooms. Then you get the celery or the lovage as well. It's this cool celery flavor coming through and kind of cutting through the umami. And oh, what a wonderfully complex dish this is.
Oh yes,
I
the Parthians.
heartily endorse this dish. It has two ingredients, the asafoetida and the garum or liquamen, that do not smell good. That really, it's like, why are you putting this in food? But they work. I don't know how they work, but they work. It's like magic alchemy, because this is really fantastic and complex and something I don't think you will have ever tried before. So go ahead and make it. I'm going to link to a lot of the ingredients down in the description.
Yeah, I really want to try that. That sounds awesome. But yeah, it seems like there's going to be a fair amount of prep involved with that. And yeah, so he did go over it in the video. Maybe you were not. No, you were there for it, because I restarted it for there. The Parthians were essentially they were after Alexander the Great died, his Greek empire in the east collapsed, and it divided up into a bunch of different factions, and then eventually the Parthians came out on top. So they're like Middle Eastern Greeks, essentially, is a good way to put it. And they sort of acted as the middlemen between Rome and China. So yeah, that's pretty much the best explanation, I think, or the quickest explanation for it. Well, hey, I've had psilocybin before. It's not a regular thing by any means, but I've had it once in a while. But yeah, I don't like mushrooms. I think I'm with Max on it that it's the texture. I don't mind the flavor of mushrooms. I'm not huge on it, but yeah, it's just they gross me out just biting into them. I like truffles though, but truffles are very expensive, so I only eat them if like I'm getting them from somebody else, because there's no way I'm gonna buy it. Oh, you're editing. Yeah, fair enough.
Some of the harder ones to find, but If you have trouble finding lovage, go ahead and use celery. Yeah, endorsed. A+, thumbs up, and I will see you next time on Tasting History.
That does sound real. Just the way he's selling it, his reaction to it, that was very genuine. I definitely want to try that, but that's
in ancient
gotta be
Greece,
cooking.
Spartan warriors were renowned for three things: their bravery in battle, their pithy comebacks, and their atrocious cuisine. Their most infamous dish being melos zomos, or black broth. Just looking at it makes you wonder if Leonidas' declaration of "Tonight we dine in hell" was less of a threat and more of a promise of better things to come. But regardless of my own personal feelings on the look of this dish, today, in the name of food history, I'm going to do my best to recreate Spartan black broth and try to find out what in the background of a Spartan warrior would lead them to sup on such a soup. This time on Tasting History.
Yeah, it looks absolutely appalling.
The Greek writer Athenaeus tells us of a man from Sybaris who tried melos zomos, afterwards saying, "It is natural for the Spartans to be the bravest of men, for any man in his senses would rather die 10,000 times over than live as miserably as this." Now that's a one-star Yelp review if I've ever heard one. But what caused such disgust and vitriol for this Spartan broth? Well, unfortunately, as so many things from antiquity, we don't actually have a recipe. But we do have a fairly good idea of the main ingredients. There's mention that it was made with pork, and then because of the black color, we can deduce that it was also made with pork blood. And then it would also need vinegar because...
I mean, I will say right now, any place, any culture that uses like blood in their food, automatic no. Because you know who makes blood sausages, who cooks with blood? The British. So no, absolutely not. This is already a bad sign. It's already a seriously bad sign. I mean, you're talking about a group of people that think that eating 3 slices of bread, one of them toasted, you put the toasted slice in the middle of just 2 plain slices of bread, they consider that to be a sandwich. I am not shitting you. That is part of British cuisine. And yeah, blood sausage. Just, ugh. Coagulated blood? No, I'm good on that. So yeah, no, the Spartans strike me as the type that they were not the most proficient chefs. Oh, maybe the UK is where, or maybe the Spartans is where the UK got their inspiration from. Who knows? Yeah, like the UK. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Hey, great minds think alike. You were on the same page.
Vinegar would stop that blood from coagulating. Other than that, we're kind of guessing what would be in it. Historians believe that it also probably had herbs and salt and maybe even onions.
That might be a little bit too fancy for
I'm going to put
the
all of
Spartans.
those in just for flavor's sake. Now, when it comes to the process of making our soup, we can rely on modern soups for that, because the process tends to be uniform wherever they have blood soups. German Schwarzsauer, Filipino dinuguan, and a whole host of Eastern European blood soups. So those are a lot more flavorful, going to have a lot of ingredients, so we're going to be a little bit more Spartan in ours, but the process should remain about the same. So for this soup, you will need 2 pounds or 1 kilogram of pork leg or other pork product, 2 cups or a half liter of pig blood. Now, finding pig blood, not always the easiest thing, but the best place to start is going to be a Chinese market. They might even have fresh pig blood, and that's the best. That's what you really want, but a lot of times they're not going to have that. Instead, they have these bricks of kind of coagulated pig blood, which will work just fine. We'll just have to go through an extra step during the recipe. 1 cup or 235 milliliters of white wine vinegar, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 teaspoon of salt, or more to taste, 4 cups or 1 liter of water, 3 bay leaves, and 1 chopped onion. So first, go ahead and put a large stock pot over medium-high heat and add in your olive oil. Then toss in your onions and stirring them around every once in a while, let them cook until they've become nice and tender or lightly browned, about 10 minutes. Then add in your pork and give that about 10 minutes also to brown. Then pour in your 1 cup of vinegar, then 3 or 4 cups of water. Now, if you have fresh blood, put all 4 cups of water in, but if you have that kind of coagulated brick of pig's blood, then save 1 cup back because we're going to need that in our process to liquefy the rest of the blood. Then add in your salt and your bay leaves and stir everything together. Then raise the heat to high until the soup is boiling. at which point you're going to lower the heat to medium-low and let it simmer just until the pork is cooked, about 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, so
Now,
far,
so
it's not
far,
too
this
bad.
kind of sounds like my granny's pork stew,
Yeah,
though maybe
yeah.
with a lot more vinegar and a few less potatoes and other delicious ingredients, but overall, nothing too crazy. But we are about to add that last crucial and oddest ingredient that might turn some people away. The blood. I'm sorry. So if you have fresh blood, pour it into the soup right now, stir it around, and let it simmer for about another 15 minutes. But if you have that brick of blood, break it up a little bit and put it into a blender. Then add that last cup of water and blend to your heart's content. Now there might still be some chunks in there. They're not going to hurt you, but if you want, you can strain them out just to make a little bit more of a smooth broth than chunky. Either way, pour it into the pot and let it simmer for 15 more minutes.
They're ruining a perfectly
Now,
good pot of
despite
soup there.
what we may feel about this soup today, it's clear that it helped to build Spartan muscles. Not those muscles, these muscles. But one cannot become a Spartan on soup alone. So let us look at what else in the life of a Spartan would lead you to become such a warrior. Plutarch tells a story of a man named Dionysius, who was the ruler or the tyrant of Sicily. And Dionysius had heard tell of this magical black broth of the Spartans, which turned them into such hardened warriors. So he wanted to try some for himself. So he got himself a Spartan slave who happened to be a cook and told him, "Make me a bowl of this so I too can become a great warrior." But the moment that he tasted it, he spat it out. And the cook said, though I'm guessing trying to stifle a laugh, "Your Majesty, it is necessary to have exercised in the Spartan manner and to have bathed in the Eurotas in order to relish this broth." I.e., if you ain't a Spartan to begin with, you better just stick to chicken noodle. And reading this story made me wonder, just what do you have to do to create a Spartan warrior? Well, for that, we should go back to the very beginning, with the birth of a little Spartan baby boy. We'll call him Billy. Billy the Spartan. Now, the moment the cord is cut, it's time for Billy's first bath. But no need for water. No. A jug of cheap wine will do just fine. See, Spartan mothers believed that if the baby was weak, then the wine would make them go into convulsions and die. But if baby Billy was strong, then he would let it roll off him like Merlot off a duck's back. Spartan mothers were not known for their maternal instinct. There's actually a great story about a young man going off to war, and his mother hands him his shield and says, "Either come back with this or on it." Thanks for the encouragement, Mom. Now, if Billy passed Mommy's wine test, then it was time for Daddy to take his turn. He would take the infant to the Gerousia, or the Council of Elders, to be examined. If the baby looked sturdy, then he was assigned a plot of land and given back to the father to raise. But if little Billy didn't look so good, then he would be thrown into the Apothete, a chasm at the foot of Mount Taygetus. Now don't worry, modern archaeology disputes this, because all the bodies found there have been adults. Now, provided Billy avoided the pit, he would be handed off to a nurse to be raised for the first few years of his life. But with Spartan nurses, there was none of this namby-pamby swaddling and coddling. No, they would be left naked and crying in a dark room until they stopped whimpering and learned to be okay being alone. Sounds like something my therapist would now charge $200 an hour for. Spartan nurses were so prized for their skill at neglect and complete lack of empathy that wealthy families from all over Greece would often bring Spartan nurses into their own home to raise their children. The great Athenian general Alcibiades had a Spartan nurse named Amycla, and he turned out great, so maybe there is something to it. Now, assuming little Billy made it past Nurse Ratched to the ripe old age of 7, he would be entered into the Agoge, which was a training program meant to make Spartan warriors. On the first day of school, he would be assigned to a troop, similar to the houses at Hogwarts, because for the next few years, they would do everything together. They had their hair clipped short, forced to go around barefoot, and usually just went without clothes of any kind
what
until
culture
they were
wasn't
12
full of
when they got a
dicks,
single
if
red
we're gonna go
cloak
that route?
that would have to last them the entire year. Often not
Cultures that weren't dicks got conquered. That's how it worked. Everywhere. Doesn't matter what culture you are. All the PC loving ones conquered.
bathing more than once or twice during the entire time. So one can only imagine the rankness of their sleeping quarters, where all the boys in the troop slept together on reed mats that they had to make by pulling out reeds from the Eurotas River without the aid of a knife. They spent their days learning the bare minimum of reading and writing, and more often spent time in mock battle or beating up helots. Now, helots were the bottom rung of Spartan society, even though they were the vast majority of Spartan society. You could basically beat them up with impunity. Now, if no helots happened to be around, then it was time for a taunting.
Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelt of elderberries.
Spartan youths were encouraged to mock and taunt each other to a mean degree, without any conviviality, just mean-spirited mockery. And
well, modern-day Switzerland is. They weren't in the past. They were like every other conquering nation, but then they like kind of got set aside. They were basically forced by, God, what was it, the Napoleonic Wars? One of them, they basically said, okay, Switzerland, you are a neutral country. You have to be. All of Europe is telling you to be neutral. And yeah, they kind of developed their own like weird little sense of identity and kind of just staying out of people's business. A little bit, they kind of have a stick up their ass. Well, they have a really big stick up their ass, but yeah, they're pretty chill, but they weren't always that way.
The victim had to take it without getting upset. But the moment that a mean degree, youths were encouraged to mock and taunt each other to a mean degree, without any conviviality, just mean-spirited mockery. And the victim had to take it without getting upset. But the moment that they said to cease, it had to stop. So that's nice, I guess.
Now go away, or I shall taunt you a second time.
Now, a morning of beating up helots and taunting your friends is sure to work up an appetite, so at this point, it was time to eat. But unfortunately for little Billy, there wasn't going to be much on the menu. Spartan boys would accompany their fathers to the Syssitia, which was kind of similar to a modern-day military mess, but it was something that you belonged to. Once there, they would have the barest of rations,
like a dining
sometimes
club kind of thing?
being fortunate enough to have a kamatidis, which was something like a cake made of olive oil and barley groats wrapped in laurel leaves. Sounds delish. But if Billy was still hungry after that, then he would be encouraged to steal whatever else he wanted, probably usually from those same helots who he beat up that morning. Now, if he was caught stealing, he would be flogged mercilessly, sometimes until the point just before death. Not for stealing, but for getting caught. Plutarch tells a story of a boy who had stolen a fox and he was carrying it around, and then somebody approached him, and rather than be detected, he hid the fox under his cloak. But then the fox ended up disemboweling him with his claws and his teeth, and the little boy died. Moral of the story? Steal vegetables. Now, if little Billy doesn't have his guts ripped out by a woodland creature and makes it to the age of 20, it's time to join the Syssitia and the Spartan army. But you have to be voted in. Now, if he doesn't get voted in that first year, he has until the age of 30. He can try over and over again all the way until 30. That's also the year that he can finally get married and move out into his own home. But if he hits 30 and still hasn't been voted into the Syssitia, then he's considered a disgrace and will never achieve full citizenship. But good news for Billy, he got voted in, and now he's a full member of the Syssitia, and the food is about to get a little bit better.
Indeed, Tinchy,
Athenaeus,
indeed.
quoting Disiarchus,
like
says,
I said, the
dinner is at first served separately to each member, and there is no sharing of any kind with one's neighbor. Afterward, there is a barley cake as large as each desires, and for drinking, a cup is set beside them to use whenever he is thirsty. The same meat dish is given to all on every occasion, a piece of boiled pork. Besides this, there is nothing whatsoever except, of course, the melos zomos made from this meat. There may possibly be an olive or cheese or a fig or something similar.
They're getting ritzy there.
So now that's the basic meal, but afterward, on occasions, there would...
All the Spartans you know are turbo? Are you referring to actual Spartans or Halo Spartans? Because I think Master Chief, if anything, he had a like slight thing for Cortana, although he was a little bit he had a bit of the like gay for women thing with what's her name, the Linda or whatever, the one they introduced as the girl boss in 5. It was she like was almost on the brink of death on Reach, and then she was actually on the Pillar of Autumn. I forget. I was reading the lore because you sent me that video to watch, and I watched it, and I kind of did a little side research on there. Oh yeah. No. Yeah, the actual Spartans. Oh yeah, they are very, very gay. Women were for reproducing, men were for pleasure.
Be something called the apaiklon, which was a kind of forced potluck. Following the meal, it is customary for something to be provided by several persons, a dish prepared in their own homes and called a paiklon. No one is in the habit of contributing anything which he has bought by purchase in the market, for they contribute not to satisfy their pleasure or the greed of the stomach, but to give evidence of their own prowess in the hunt. The cooks announce to the company the names of those who bring in anything for the occasion, in order that they may realize the labor spent upon the chase and the zeal manifested for themselves.
Just pat themselves on the back.
So just like
Fine.
today, it should be homemade. You can't just go down and get yourself some brownie bites at the Piggly Wiggly. And I love the part where they announce all of the dishes that people have made. It's like, look everyone, Gladys May made her famous country chicken casserole. Yummy! So at these second
Yeah, that whole thing was weird. Yeah, who she was based off of and all the terrible things she did. Yeah.
breakfasts of sorts, Athenaeus says that the Spartan warriors would eat fresh greens, beans, wheat bread, and even sometimes little honey cakes called physikilos. So clearly, Spartan meals have a much worse rap than they probably deserve, but in comparison with a lot of their neighbors, they were still very meager. According to Herodotus, when the Persian king Xerxes fled from Greece, he left everything behind, including his lavish war tent. Coming across the tent, the Spartan general Pausanias was struck by the opulence, and, wanting to see how the other half lived, he decided to sit down on one of the gold and silver embroidered couches and commanded the captured Persian cooks to cook him a meal fit for a general. Then he asked his own Spartan cooks to do the same. When both meals were set out before him, he just laughed and called in the other Greek generals to say, "Men of Greece, I ask you here to show you the folly of the Persians, who, living in this style, came to Greece to rob us of our poverty." So yeah,
God.
you can kind of see why the cook told old Dionysius that you're just not going to get it if you weren't raised a Spartan. And I was not raised a Spartan. No, it's true. But
Yeah, you have to
I'm
have your
still
taste
going
buds
to
burnt
try
off.
this Melosomos for myself.
That's easy into the own. Yeah, so that was the what was it now? Was that the basically the CIA guy who was sort of like doing the experiments on the flood? I'm not remembering the exact details on that one. Bottom of the ends justify the means. I really do enjoy characters like that if they're well written, because they can just be like, oh, I'm just a huge asshole and I do bad things because and this is my excuse. But I do like a good character that is in that category of you kind of hate them a little bit, but you still mostly agree with them because what they're doing is ultimately right. And I was kind of surprised too with that video because I saw it was by 343, so it's like, oh, well, I'll kind of see on the writing, but they did a nice job of kind of making every party feel justified in their feelings in handling of the situation. Clearly, like the higher you got up, the more corrupt things got, but you understood why everyone did what they did. It was nice. It made you feel conflicted emotions. Office of Naval Intelligence, yeah, the major or whatever his rank was. Yeah, he was a huge douche, but it's like you can kind of see where he's coming from. Like it is very much we'll kill 1,000 covenants and humans on this prison ship, but it's fucking worth it. I was kind of confused by like the ending with Henry and Lopez or whatever her name was, because they said that there was like 2 escape pods, and then in the end she's like they're the only 2 alive, and then she's like, well, Henry, there's only 1 escape pod. It's like, wait, what? And I thought like those escape pods could hold like several people, and then ends with them fighting. It's like, I mean, I personally I was on Henry's side more than Lopez. Lopez was a good character, mostly kind of a little bit obnoxious, but I generally liked her. But still, I was just like, oh man. I mean, it kind of makes sense as the ending, but yeah.
So after 15 minutes of simmering or more, you can really let this simmer all day if you want, but the soup is now ready to try. And here we are.
Oh, God.
Melos Zomos. Spartan
that's so
black
gross.
broth. So, yeah. Here we go. It smells vinegary, as I expected, but
Yeah,
it
it's a
also
fake
smells
doctor.
of pork.
It is,
It
yeah.
doesn't smell bad.
Oh, that's right. You're right. He did
just-
take one of the pods. Yep.
It smells like pork stew. Here we go. I'm gonna just try the broth at first. It's not bad.
Huh.
I'm gonna take a taste with the meat now. It's
Wow.
vinegary. It's fine. I think those other Greeks were just being babies. This is not terrible. It does not look appetizing, and maybe that's that's what they were kind of going off of.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
fine. I wouldn't want it. I'm never going to crave this. Partly because it's just kind of flavorless in a way. I would love some more herbs and spices, and maybe they used more. We don't know. It's pretty Spartan, which is what it should be.
But
Yeah, there it is. Spartan black broth. Don't know what all the fuss is about, except for the look, which is horrific. So while I'm not going to enthusiastically endorse you making this, it's kind of interesting. And how often do you get to eat black food? Not too often. But maybe just make it for yourself and your closest friends who you know won't abandon you. Because I think if you did this for a dinner party, that would be your last dinner party. Anyway,
Yeah, I
make
can
sure
see
to
that.
like this video, and I will see you next time on Tasting History.
Yeah, from what I know about the lore with the Spartans, it's a super fucked up
A
project.
lot of people have been asking me, what is the
And yeah, I think we will do this episode here. We'll just do one more episode. I think I'm gonna probably call it because I'd like to try and go to bed fairly early, just because I told myself even if I wasn't gonna do the full crazy 8 days, I am gonna do 5.5 because my fast started on 6 p.m. on Sunday, so 6 a.m. on Saturday. I think that'll be a good amount of time. So I'm gonna try and sleep through it. If I can. So I'm getting pretty damn hungry. The food videos aren't helping either. So yeah, I think one more here because this looks interesting. Sylphium, the lost aphrodisiac of ancient Rome.
A lot of people have been asking me, what is the hardest ingredient for you to find? Is it flamingo tongue or white horehound maybe? And yes, those are hard to track down, but at least they exist. Now, I've got to go with that lost and possibly extinct herb, Sylphium from ancient Rome. So today we're making a sauce for fried fish from ancient Rome, which calls for this mysterious ingredient. So thank you to Noom for sponsoring this video as we pick through the murky past of Sylphium, this time on Tasting History.
Yeah, Halo does a lot with dark storytelling.
So I was picking through the Apicius Terra Coquinaria
Some
looking
of it
for a
doesn't
recipe
succeed, but there's a lot of good shit in
uses
there, for sure.
Sylphium for today's episode, and there are lots that use Sylphium. He even has one that's just a Sylphium sauce, but I decided on either a fried fish sauce or the womb of a sterile sow. Then it turned out that all the sows that I know are rather virile, so it's the fish sauce. Sauce with herbs for fried fish. Whatever fish you like, clean, salt, fry. Pound pepper, cumin, coriander seed, Sylphium root, oregano, rue, pound. Moisten with vinegar, add dates, honey, defrutum, oil, liquamen. Pour into a pot, let it boil. When heated, pour over the fried fish. Sprinkle pepper, and serve. Now, the author doesn't give us any quantities for the ingredients, so what I'm making today, my interpretation, far from the gospel truth. If you want to change it up, go right ahead.
They're not even given armor? That's ridiculous. Yeah, that's the thing with like the Space Marines is that like you do not want to be a Space Marine. It is a awful process. You have to do it as you said, that they are very, very similar. A lot of overlap there. I'm sure Bungie took inspiration from the Space Marines on that. But like it's an awful experience, but you are quasi immortal. And you do get to go on some cool space battles, but you will die in service of the Emperor. It might be at 5 years after being in the project or being in your new chapter. It might be 100 years. It might be 1,000 years. There are Marines that are thousands of years old. Mostly Chaos Space Marines, unfortunately. But Yeah. But the thing is, you do get really good armor, unless the plot says your armor doesn't work, which there's a lot of bad writers in GW, so that does happen. But no, their armor is ludicrous. It takes a lot to pierce it. Like, that just seems so ridiculous that you'd have this, like, super soldier project and then give them shit armor. That's just dumb. That's just dumb, yeah. Huh. That is ludicrously expensive armor. Jesus Christ. How does a set of armor cost as much as a battleship? That is, wow, that's insane.
Now the amount that I'm making today though is good for about 2 fried fish. So what you'll need is a whole fish or fillet, salt for seasoning. Now usually the Romans use liquamen or garum for seasoning, and they do mention that in this sauce, but they also say to salt the fish. So I'm just going to use regular salt, though actually I got a really cool fancy salt that was given to me, so if you have any of those cool fancy salts that you can never actually find a use for, go ahead and use it for this. 1/2 teaspoon black peppercorns, 1/2 teaspoon cumin seeds, 1/2 teaspoon coriander seed, 1/2 teaspoon silphium. But wait, you just said that it was extinct, or at least we don't know what it was, and that is true. So you can either leave it out completely, that's okay, some historians would say to do that, but some historians would also say swap it out for something called asafoetida, or hing, and that's because it sometimes may have been used in Rome as a substitute, but we will get into that later. For my part, I'm using the asafoetida because the flavor is very interesting. 1 teaspoon fresh oregano. If you can only find dried oregano, use 1/2 teaspoon. 1/2 teaspoon dried rue. Now this is a really interesting ingredient, one, because it's almost impossible to find, at least here in America, that's not dried. Now if you can find it, if you're growing it in your garden, go ahead and use the fresh, because that's probably what they would have used, but double it, so use a full teaspoon. But if you're using the dried, then 1/2 teaspoon. Now we don't know, did they use just the leaves or did they use the berries? Not sure, both are edible. Very different flavors. We think though that they were probably using the leaves in something like this, so they're kind of bitter. So you could swap out with any kind of bitter
nervous
herb.
system
but
and brain.
another thing to watch out for is if you're pregnant, you shouldn't be eating it, which is weird. 3 tablespoons red or white wine vinegar, 3 dates, minced, 2 tablespoons of honey, 1 tablespoon of de frutum. Now here's another ingredient that you might not have heard of. De frutum was a reduction of must. So must is the fresh squeezed juice of grapes, which includes the seeds and the skins and everything, and then it's reduced by about half to become like this nice sweet syrup. The modern version is called mosto cotto or vin cotto, and it's very, very similar probably. We don't know for sure. And I'll put a link in the description to where you can get that, but you can also just take some grape juice and reduce it yourself. It won't have the other parts of the grape, it's just the juice, but you can reduce it yourself. It'll be similar. What you don't want to add is any lead, which probably would have been included in the original recipe, but don't add that.
Oh, good lord.
2 tablespoons of olive oil, plus
Just
more
like in
for
ancient
frying,
China where
and 1
there's
tablespoon
an obsession
of
with
liquamen
mercury.
or garum. Again, you're probably not going to be able to find garum, so go ahead and use Colatura di Alici, which is what I use. I'll link in the description, or any other kind of wonderful fish sauce. Eastern
Spartan's
Asia
got
has a
Mengele
lot that you
surgery
can
by
get
the
at pretty
arm.
much any store.
Damn.
So before I get started cooking, I wanted to mention the
Oh,
sponsor of
that's
this video,
brutal, yeah.
Noom. So last spring to now, from when I was excited to actually get to try a goal specialist who can help you on your journey. So actually just before I started filming this episode this week. So if you want to try it with me, just click up your herbs nice and fine. First, make your sauce. Go ahead and chop up your herbs nice and fine, then add your pepper, cumin, and coriander into a mortar and grind everything up. Once it's ground, add the asafoetida if you're going to use it, along with the oregano and the rue. Then mix everything together, pounding the ingredients into submission. Then transfer all of that into a small saucepan and add the vinegar, the honey, the de frutum, the oil, and the garum, and the dates. Mix everything together and then set it aside while you prepare your fish. Now when it comes to frying fish, there are a lot of ways to do it. This is the way that I'm doing it, but it's not the only way to do it. So make sure your fish is nice and clean and pat it dry. You can take off the fins or leave them on. You're not going to eat them probably, but you actually can. Then make several slices about halfway through the meat of the fish and then season it with the salt, making sure to get some into those openings. So here's the question. Do we flour this fish Or do we not flour this fish? I am not flouring this fish. It doesn't mention it in the recipe, so we don't actually know. They might have put some sort of flour on there. I don't know. But you don't need flour to fry a fish. You just have to have a little bit more oil. And when you put it in, don't move it. Just leave it alone until it's cooked on that side. If you are going to flour it, then you can use a little bit less oil, but you do need to kind of move it around for the first few seconds until it gets a nice crust so it doesn't stick to the pan. Either way you do it, pour your olive oil into a pan and heat it on medium-high heat until it's nice and hot, about 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 205 degrees Celsius. Once it hits that temperature, turn it down to medium and put the fish in very gently away from you. Again, do not move this fish. It will break up if you're not flouring the fish. Just go ahead and leave it untouched in the oil to fry for about 4 or 5 minutes while we talk silphium. We find it stated by the most trustworthy among the Greek writers that this plant first made its appearance in the vicinity of the gardens of the Hesperides and the greater Syrtis, immediately after the earth had been soaked by a rain black as pitch. This took place 7 years before the foundation of the city of Cyrene, and in the year of Rome, 143. That was Pliny the Elder, so you know it's got to be true. I mean, what's hard to believe, right? 143 years after the foundation of Rome, some sort of black rain came down around the area of like Benghazi, Libya, and all of a sudden silphium just magically sprouted out of the ground. What's hard to believe? I also love that he makes sure to mention that this story came from the most trusted of Greek writers, who was probably Theophrastus, because he's like, you know, don't take it from me. It's not my word, it's that guy's. So if you got a problem with the story, take it up with him. Anyway, it wasn't long after the silphium came magically sprouting up that the people of Cyrene settled the area, supposedly on the good advice of the god Apollo. Thanks, Apollo. Anytime. The plant ended up becoming one of their main exports to Greece, Rome, and Egypt, and even became their national symbol, appearing on their coins as far back as the 6th century BC. So now, while the plant itself, silphium, was very precious, Pliny says that it was the sap or the juice that came from the stalk and the roots, which he called laser or laserpicium, which was really, really precious. He said that it was actually sold for its weight in silver, which is why the dictator Caesar at the beginning of the Civil War took from out of the public treasury, besides gold and silver, no less than 1,500 pounds of laserpicium. But Pliny claims that the farmers of Cyrene allowed their sheep to graze on the silphium, so that within the memory of the present generation, a single stalk is all that has ever been found there, and that it was sent as a curiosity
Sergeant
to the
Johnson, all either died or had their CNSs scrambled so bad that even the flood could... Huh. I mean, I will say that does kind of come off as like a, well, we have to have a reason that he survived kind of situation, but interesting. Wait, so actually, no, that I think on that does confuse me. Why would that matter? Don't they just like overtake organic life, period? Or does it have to be intelligent life?
Emperor Nero. There had been no other laser imported into this country, but that produced in either Persis, Media, or Armenia, which is grown in considerable abundance, though much inferior to that of Cyrenaica. And even that is adulterated with gum, sarcopenium, or pounded beans. Okay, so you don't get to blame the poor sheep when you just said that Julius Caesar had 1,500 pounds of the stuff. That's not really fair, is it? Also, just for a little context, those 3 places that he mentioned, Persis, Media, and Armenia, were under the control of the Parthian Empire, which we discussed at length in our episode on Parthian chicken. And that's why a lot of historians think that it's possible that this knockoff silphium, sometimes cut with pounded beans I guess, was Asafoetida or Hing, because that was growing in those regions at the time. Probably. I guess it'd be kind of like if the recipe for Coca-Cola just completely disappeared and all that we were left with was Pepsi cut with RC Cola. Be very, very sad. So Theophrastus, father of botany and that most trustworthy Greek that Pliny mentioned, discusses how silphium was only grown in one strip along the North African coast about 125 miles long. He also says that silphium couldn't be cultivated. It had to grow wild, and there were attempts to cultivate it, but the product was inferior and it just never really worked. So after the Romans took over the area, they blew through the entire supply in just over a century. But why? What was so special about this plant? We don't really know, but definitely one reason, and probably the main reason, was it was tasty, or at least they thought so. I mean, even hundreds of years after the plant supposedly went extinct, it's still showing up in recipes like the one that we're making today. There's a great scene in the Greek comedy The Birds by Aristophanes, where the main character, a mortal from Athens, is cooking when Poseidon, Hercules, and another god come walking through the door. The grater for the cheese, can someone get it? And bring the silphium. Hand me the cheese. Now, fire up the coals.
Greetings, mortal. We three are gods and urge you to greet us.
But I'm grating silphium right now. I love that. I mean, who has time for the gods when you're eating silphium? That's how good the stuff was. It'd be like me with anything that had the words molten and chocolate in it. So yeah, they thought it was tasty, and it was probably mostly used for food.
By Peter Jackson. Yeah, that could have been really good. He's had a few stinkers, but overall, the man is an excellent director. But, I mean, yeah, I guess it depends on who is producing it. And honestly, I mean, we saw how the Halo TV show went, so I get scared if I see any sort of modern adaptation of, well, anything, book, movie, TV show, whatever. Now, just because there's still so many terrible fucking writers in the system and terrible producers. So I kind of like anything I really love, I don't want it to get made for probably another 5 or 6 years. The system needs to get cleaned out. We need to get, like, Hollywood needs to get not shit again. Ah, okay. Fair enough. I've not read it myself.
That's why we're talking about it here on Tasting History. But it also had a number of other uses. When the gut protrudes and will not remain in its place, scrape the finest and most compact silphium into small pieces and apply as a poultice. So that was Hippocrates, father of medicine, describing how silphium could be used to treat what I'm assuming is a hernia. But it comes from a work called On Fistulae, and in the work, Hippocrates describes in the most vivid of terms every horrible malady that the human body will go through. I'm not going to read them right now, but I am going to put a link in the description to where you can read it. It's really gross, but it's really interesting.
Thanks,
now, going back to Pliny the Elder, he goes to town and names off 39 remedial uses for silphium. Lazer, a juice which distills from silphium, reckoned among the most precious gifts presented to us by nature, is made use of in numerous medicinal preparations. Employed by itself, it warms and revives persons benumbed with cold. It is given to females in wine to promote the menstrual discharge. Mixed with wax, it extracts corns on the feet after they have been first loosened with a knife. He also says that it's a diuretic and a digestive and can neutralize the venom of serpents and poisoned weapons. It's also good for gout, pleurisy, quinsy, sciatica, and epilepsy. But my favorite thing that he says is actually what it should not be used for. For my own part, I should not recommend what some authors advise, to insert a pill of lazer covered with wax in a hollow tooth for toothache, being warned to the contrary by a remarkable case of a man who, after doing so, threw himself headlong from the top of a house. Besides, it is a well-known fact that if it is rubbed on the muzzle of a bull, it irritates him to an extraordinary degree, and if it is mixed with wine, it will cause serpents to burst, those reptiles being extremely fond of wine.
Who was giving it the fucking serpents? Jesus Christ.
I just love this guy. What world is he living in?
You have to have plenty of wine to do either of those
drunk
things.
snakes going around. I
Jesus
love you.
Christ,
I
that's
love
amazing.
you, Pliny. Never change. Anyway, it also
Yeah, I didn't know that much about the prophets other than they're huge dicks, because, I mean, they're trying to wipe out humanity. But they know that it's going to destroy the universe and that the religion is fake, but the power is more important. Huh. Yeah, wow, fuck them. Like, really fuck them. That is nuts. I was not aware of that. I just knew they were huge assholes. But they are super huge assholes.
had several ties to carnal relations. It was thought that silphium was actually an aphrodisiac. The seed pod was shaped like a heart and also appeared on Cyrene's coins, and some scholars have actually linked that to the heart being a symbol of love today. There's a little story about the plant's tie to Amur from Pausanias's description of Greece. He tells a story of the Discori, who were the twins Castor and Pollux from Greek mythology. You might know them better as Gemini, the constellation. These rascally brothers did everything together, from fighting to falling in love. And one day they show up at the house of a Spartan named Phormyon and ask if they can stay. And Phormyon's like, yeah, of course, you can stay, just don't stay in this one room, because that was where his maiden daughter lived. Well, by the next day, this maiden and all her girlish apparel had disappeared. And in the room were found images of the Discori, a table, and silphium upon it. Now, silphium was an aphrodisiac, but it was also a contraceptive, so make what you will of that story. So yeah, that's silphium. Possibly extinct, possibly still hiding in plain sight and just lost to history and forgotten. Some people actually think that it's the Ferula tingitana, or Tangier fennel. Or maybe it's Ferula communis, known as giant fennel. We don't know. And that's why the asafoetida that I'm using today is just a guess, and you would not be wrong to leave it out completely. It's up to you. Either way, I used it, and I am ready to finish up this fish. So by now your fish should be done on one side, and all that you gotta do is gently, very gently, flip it over. If it feels like it's stuck, then that means it's not cooked all the way and you just gotta give it another minute and then flip it over. Once you flip the fish, turn the heat to medium-low and strike up another burner so you can start heating up your sauce. It should only take a few minutes to get this amount of sauce to a boil, which is why we're just starting it now as our fish finishes frying. Fish finishes frying. Fish finishes frying. It's so hard to say. I took so many takes to get that. Once the fish is fried on the other side, go ahead and set it onto a wire rack with paper towels underneath. Don't put it directly onto paper towel because then it ends up losing the crispness and it kind of gets soggy on one side of the fish, and nobody wants a soggy fish. Then, as the recipe says, go ahead and pour the sauce over the fish and sprinkle with pepper. I actually swapped the two, did the pepper and then the sauce. I don't think it really matters, but I can't read. So here we are.
Even though I don't like fish, it actually looks pretty good.
Sauce from ancient Rome. I'm gonna take my bite right out of the middle. Try not to get any bones. That's always the scary part with whole fish. Not that it really matters, but. Okay. It's like anything from ancient Rome, the flavors are so foreign. It's really sweet at the beginning, and then it's not sweet. It turns into something very savory and then salty. It's like it's going down the line of all of these different flavors. And there's this onion, which is actually probably the asafoetida, that kind of spice onion flavor.
That does sound good, man.
Oh, but it's really good, and it's so crispy.
The symphony of flavors,
I did a good job frying this fish. Yeah, I would suggest you make this sauce. I need some more sauce on there. The sauce is really good. Honestly, this sauce could go on anything.
Does sound good.
I just love how the flavor keeps changing along the way. It's so interesting. It's wonderful. Yeah, it's also really light, and that's lovely. I don't make a lot of light things here. I use a lot of butter and whatnot. Anyway, make sure to subscribe to Tasting History, and I will see you next time on Tasting History.
They worship a god literally told all the prophets of the religion it's wrong and the foreigners are dead with no heaven or great journey. The decision was, let's not tell anyone we'll be deposed. Fuck. I mean, that is a good way to set up a villain. To just have them be like, truly just like, nah, everything, we know everything's a lie, but we are just like, fuck it, we don't want to lose power. No. We're not going to do that. Are you kidding me? We have to stay in power. Okay, so yeah, I think that was pretty good there. I'm reaching that point though. I'm pretty worn out. Gonna rate us in here, hang out for a bit, and then I'm going to yeah, probably crash pretty soon here. But thank you guys so much for coming in. Tenchi, thank you for the raid, as always. I think we're gonna go say hi to... God, we got a lot of people tonight. Got a lot of people we can raid into here. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Hina, as well. No, I think I'm gonna go with Virus here. I think it's been a little while since I raided. Yeah. So, thank you guys so much. It was a lot of fun. This is a nice, relaxed way to end the week. Let me get my raid message up here. Oh, thank you very much, Heavy Monkey Arms. Welcome in, buddy. Welcome in. But yeah, I've not ran into Virus for a while, so I'm going to send us over to him. And for tomorrow, like I said, there will be a secret stream. When that happens, I have no idea. It is when I'm up and ready for it, because I am going to finally eat some food after 5.5 days. So I'll have to see how my body reacts to that. I may end up like on the couch, just sort of like just chilling out for a bit after I wake up and eat. So yeah, that will happen. We'll be playing Rise, Son of Rome, finishing that up, and yeah, hope to see you guys then. Take care.